Chapter 342. The moment Gu Mingming came out, Elvis went up to her and carried her up. He tore off the wet beast skin on her feet and placed her feet on his stomach to warm them up. "Where are we going?" Elvis asked. Gu Mingming laughed coldly and said, "Nina's house." Elvis frowned. He knew that Gu Mingming would not tolerate Sandy's injury any longer. Gu Mingming tilted her head and smiled at Elvis. She said, "Even if you let Nina participate in the beauty pageant, can you guarantee that she will not take the opportunity to announce my affairs to the public? Won't we be in a more passive position then? Instead of avoiding, why not take the initiative to attack? For the beauty pageant, I will participate. While everyone is here, I will announce my identity as the messenger of the beast deity. That way, at least no one will dare to create trouble openly. As for the hidden stab, even if I don't show myself, I won't be able to hide for long." Elvis nodded and did not say a word. Even though Gu Mingming's plan was different from what he had discussed with Leah, he believed in Gu Mingming and did not need any other reasons. He would do as she said. When Gu Mingming brought Elvis and Barit to the outside of Nina's cave, a pungent smell assaulted their nostrils and made Gu Mingming frown in displeasure. Before she could say anything, 7 to 8 males jumped out of the cave and blocked in front of Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming laughed coldly and said, "You think you can stop me?" The males looked at each other and one of them said, "This is Nina's territory. Without her permission, you can't enter." Gu Mingming looked as if she had heard the funniest joke in the world. She covered her mouth with one hand and laughed for a long time. She laughed until tears flowed out before she stopped. She glanced sideways and said, "I will enter. You can follow the rules of the beast world and treat us as invading enemies to attack. No one will stop you." The males were taken aback and took 2 steps back instead of advancing. They said, You are the messenger of the beast deity. How can you not follow the rules?" Gu Mingming shrugged and said, "You also know that I am the messenger of the beast deity? Then do you know that from now on, the rules of this world are set by me?" The male was so ridiculed that he was speechless. He felt that the little female in front of him was like a completely different person compared to when she taught everyone how to preserve meat before winter. Back then, she was as warm as the sun, but now she was like the sun itself, emitting a heat that could destroy everything. Elvis did not stop and maintained his original speed as he continued walking in. A few males wanted to stop him, but Elvis gave a cold snort and emitted a strong pressure. Those males immediately laid on the ground and could not stand up. "Leave this to me," Barit said from behind Elvis. Elvis nodded, retracted his pressure and continued forward. When he reached the entrance of the cave, all of Nina's other partners had already come out. Gu Mingming counted, 27. "What about the other one? Are you accompanying Nina inside?" Gu Mingming asked with a smile. Nina's partners were stunned. They did not expect that they would be discovered so quickly. They exchanged glances with each other and decided to guard the cave entrance with all their might and wait for the 28th person to come and save Nina. However, Gu Mingming smiled and pulled Elvis's arm. She said, "Don't dirty your hands. Isn't Nina in the cave? Just nice. I can summon the flame demon and roast him into a beggar's chicken in the cave. It will save me a lot of trouble and also nourish my Sandy's body at the same time." Aside from the topic, today's update is over. I guess someone is going to say that I'm stuck again. Susu expressed her helplessness. The 9,000-word update ends here. I didn't mean to be stuck. Chapter 343. Upon hearing Gu Mingming's words, Nina, who was originally hiding in the cave, immediately ran out. The males blocking the entrance all stood in front of her and said to Gu Mingming, "If you are here because of Sandy, then please punish me. After hurting a precious female, even if I have to go to the platform of the deity's punishment, I have no complaints. However, this has nothing to do with Nina. She has never hurt Sandy. Great messenger, please don't vent your anger on her on account that Nina is a precious perfect female. I wasn't the one who injured Sandy. It's unreasonable for you to want to burn me to death. Also, didn't you want me to participate in the beauty pageant? If you burn my delicate skin, Saint Nazir won't be able to recruit any brave males then." Nina hid behind her male's back and stretched out her neck to shout. Gu Mingming covered her mouth and laughed lightly. She said in disdain, "The words messenger of the beast deity is not more attractive than a wild chicken like you? You're just a meat bird, yet you think you're a peacock?" Nina wanted to retort, but when she saw Elvis's ice-cold face, she could not help but shut up in fear. His gaze drifted into the distance, and he was anxious. Why wasn't that person back yet? Don't bother. I told Colin to keep an eye on Sandy. Right now he's fuming with rage. Unless you send your level 2 Beastmaster, you might have a chance to fight him. But Gu Mingming glanced at Nina and smiled. With your level of selfishness, you definitely won't let your strongest partner leave your side. Otherwise, who would risk their lives to hold Elvis back so that you can fight for a chance to escape when I charge over here? Nina was stunned. Nina's heart turned cold. She could not understand how Gu Mingming guessed that she would think of using Sandy to threaten Gu Mingming. Actually, it was not that Gu Mingming had such incredible foresight. It was just that she had seen too many palace fights, so she still had to guard against such tricks. Moreover, her real purpose of keeping Colin was for them to cultivate their relationship. Gu Mingming was very surprised that Nina would use such an obvious tactic that was just short of setting up a sign saying, "I'm going to kidnap Sandy." She thought that, even though Nina was dumb, she would not be so extraordinarily dumb. It seemed that she had underestimated Nina's stupidity. Gu Mingming patted Elvis's shoulder and asked, "How long can Nina's partners drag you out? 1 or 2 seconds?" Elvis did not know how long 1 second and 2 seconds were. He just raised his head and kissed Gu Mingming's little hand gently. "Close your eyes." Gu Mingming did not understand, so she closed her eyes. Feeling a jolt in her body, she panicked and opened her eyes. The moment she opened her eyes, she was already in front of Nina. Nina's partner was lying 3 to 5 meters away. Dead. He should not be dead yet, but it was obvious that he could no longer move. Elvis carried Gu Mingming with one hand while his other hand hung down naturally. Fresh red blood dripped from his fingernails onto the ground, as if he was the god of death, emitting a dark and terrifying aura. But Gu Mingming was not surprised by this. She had seen Li's skills before and knew that the difference in levels in the beast world was absolutely irresistible. The 3rd level Leah only took 3 seconds to defeat Nina's partner, the 4th level Elvis. If it wasn't for Barit who was behind them, he would probably just need to release some pressure, and they would all be lying on the ground, unable to get up. Out of topic. Baby's January will be over in a week's time. The tickets don't need to expire. Susu is so cute. Give me the tickets. Roll on the ground and beg for love. Chapter 344. Elvis reached out his hand and strangled Nina's neck, but Gu Mingming patted his shoulder, signaling him to stop. Elvis sighed and slowly put down his blood-stained hand. He looked down at Nina, who was lying on the ground and panting like a fish that had been beached, preventing her from doing anything to hurt Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming knew the reason why Elvis sighed. Although she could not understand, she clearly knew that Elvis and Leah were jealous that Barit had once gone to the platform of the deity's punishment for her to a certain extent. It was as if Barit had proven his feelings for Gu Mingming, while they did not get such a chance. This logic was very strange, but now was not the time to explain. Gu Mingming patted Elvis's shoulder and said, "Put me down." Elvis frowned and said, "There's no hide on your feet, the ground is cold." Gu Mingming smiled and said, "It's all right, let me down." Elvis's gaze landed on the puddle of blood on the ground and he frowned. Gu Mingming saw it too, but she nodded at Elvis, indicating that it was all right. Elvis could not dissuade Gu Mingming, so he took 2 steps back and tore off the hide dress from one of Nina's partners. He tore it into 2 and carefully wrapped it around Gu Mingming's feet before letting her down. After Gu Mingming landed on the ground, she walked towards Nina with slow and pressuring steps. "You instigated Quentin to assassinate me, but it didn't work anyway, so I can ignore it. You found trouble with me from time to time, but it's harmless, so I can ignore it. You sold my information to the people of Sodor, but it can't be kept a secret for long, so I can ignore it. You claim to be the most beautiful female in the tribe and pestered my man, but my man did not like you, so I can ignore it. You even threatened to kill my son, but you don't have the ability to do so, so I can." Ignore it. But you hurt my best friend. I can't let you off. When Gu Mengmeng finished her sentence, one of her feet had already stepped on Nina's shoulder. Leaning forward, he stepped on her firmly on the ground. I am the female of Saint Nazir. Our tribe has its rules. People of Saint Nazir cannot kill people of Saint Nazir. Nina had never been so afraid. It was not the first time Gu Mengmeng had hit her, but she had never seen such an obvious murderous intent in her eyes. That small body seemed to have the power to rule the world. Only when she looked up to him did she truly understand what it meant to be the messenger of the beast deity. You are from Saint Nazir, huh? Gu Mengmeng laughed coldly and said in a low voice, but I am a deity. Gu Mengmeng stepped on Nina's shoulder with one foot and stepped on Nina's face with the other, forcing the side of Nina's face to stick to the ground. Her neck was forced to be exposed. Gu Mengmeng bent her knees and bent into a bow stance. She grabbed Nina's throat with one hand and strangled it fiercely. She sneered. Your neck is really too thick. Even if I use both my hands, I can't wrap my arms around it. So, let's make it simpler. How about that? Nina instantly suffocated. Her face turned red and she couldn't make a sound. She didn't understand why Gu Mengmeng, who looked so weak, was closer to death when she was strangling her than when Elvis was strangling her neck with his big hands. Fear caused her eyes to widen and her face to look ferocious and terrifying. She used both her hands to grab around, trying to pull Gu Mengmeng down from her body. But with just one flop, before she could even touch Gu Mengmeng's clothes, both her hands were pinned to the ground on both sides of her body. Her wrists were broken, and they were embedded into the depression in the ground in a weird position. Aside from the topic, are you nervous? Is it exciting? Where's the ticket? If I don't have the ticket, I will have to say, listen to the next episode? I lied to you 5 minutes later. Next update. Chapter 345. Gu Mengmeng raised her head and met Li's smiling eyes. He stretched out a clean hand towards Gu Mengmeng like a gentleman, waiting for Gu Mengmeng to pass her little hand to him. He placed the blood-stained hand behind his back and said gently, "She is not worthy of dirtying your hand. Leave it to me, all right?" Gu Mengmeng shook her head and looked at Leah and then at Elvis, saying, "Me killing her is the oracle, the mandate of the heavens. If you guys do it, you will be breaking the rules of the beast world, and will have to go to the platform of the deity's punishment." Li's smile did not diminish and he said, "Your oracle is also the oracle and also the mandate of the heavens." Gu Mengmeng frowned but did not know what to say. You are abusing your authority. You are abusing your authority to take revenge. I am a complete female, the beloved of the beast deity. If you treat me like this, you will be punished by the beast deity. Nina seemed to be extremely afraid and started shouting incoherently. But she did not know that such shouting would only make her die faster. Gu Mengmeng knocked on Nina's Adam's apple with her knife hand, and Nina instantly started coughing violently. Breathing became a problem, not to mention talking. Gu Mengmeng squatted down and looked at her coldly, saying, "Don't you know? The beast deity is the father beast. I am abusing my authority and taking revenge on him. These are all taught by him." Obviously, Gu Mengmeng was spouting nonsense. However, Nina believed him. Mengmeng. Leah used his clean hand to carry Gu Mengmeng up gently and stared into her eyes, saying, "Can't you let me be the first person to carry out the execution according to the oracle?" Gu Mengmeng looked into Li's eyes and it was as if she could see an indescribable pain and struggle in those eyes. The only outlet to vent his anger was himself. Gu Mengmeng recalled what Elvis had told her about Li's past. He came from Sauter, which was the tribe of the previous messenger of the beast deity. He was the 9th highness who was banished for unknown reasons. His heart was filled with hatred, but he did not mention a word about his past. If the oracle of the messenger of the beast deity could free him, then why was she still hesitating? Gu Mengmeng slowly stood up and took a step back, leaning back into Elvis's arms. Elvis carried Gu Mengmeng up steadily and placed her on his shoulders. Gu Mengmeng lowered her head slightly and stared into Li's eyes. She reached out a hand and placed it on his forehead. "As the messenger of the beast deity, I bestow upon you the right to execute and punish Nina." Leah knelt down on one knee and used his clean hand to hold up Gu Mengmeng's little foot. He brought it to his lips and kissed it gently, while his other blood-stained hand was placed on his chest, painting a dark red cinnabar on that white chest. Elvis did not let Gu Mengmeng see how Leah carried out his punishment, because she should not have to experience those unpleasant scenes. Elvis and Leah exchanged glances before leaving with Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng knew that Elvis and Leah were not willing to let her see their brutal and tyrannical side, and she also did not have any desire for violence. From the bottom of her heart, she did not really want to kill Nina herself, even though she was just a wild chicken and could transform into a human form. If she really saw her die under her orders, Gu Mengmeng would still feel guilty. So when Elvis brought her away, Gu Mengmeng did not protest and did not turn back. She only needed to wait. Wait for Leah to come back and tell her what the oracle meant to him, and why his gaze had such a complicated and heavy foundation. Aside from the topic, I can tell you very responsibly that Nina received her bento box. I did not describe the way she died because she was so lowly that she was not worthy of my words. Babes who still feel that your anger has not been vented, please use your imagination and imagine the various scenes of Leah torturing and killing Nina. There are only things that you can't imagine, but there is nothing that Leah cannot do. Chapter 346. When the sky turned fiery red, and the moon slowly climbed up the mountain peak while the sun was still longing for the beautiful scenery of the world, Leah returned to Elvis's cave with the afterglow of the setting sun on him. He walked in front of Gu Mengmeng with one knee on the ground, and placed his right hand in front of his chest. He lowered his head and said, "Reporting to Great Messenger, Nina's punishment has been completed." Gu Mengmeng pulled Leah and said, "Leah, are you willing to tell me your story now?" Leah raised his head and looked at Gu Mengmeng while maintaining his kneeling position. He did not return to his senses for a long time. "Leah?" Gu Mengmeng called his name again, but Leah suddenly smiled. He smiled in a flirtatious manner and said, "Sure, as long as you mate with me, I will tell you all my stories." Gu Mengmeng suddenly felt her heart ache. No matter if Leah said coldly, "None of your business," or talked about a tragic life story sorrowfully, Gu Mengmeng was already mentally prepared for it. But Gu Mengmeng suddenly wanted to know why Leah, who was filled with hatred, would always smile so elegantly. That smile, was it just a camouflage? He tried his best to hide his emotions and used such a cynical attitude to face the pain of the past. Was it because, if he did not do so, he would not be able to bear it? Gu Mengmeng lowered her head. She was asking herself, if she forced Leah to tell that story, would she be able to bear the consequences? Because of her curiosity, she tore open Lee's fatal wound. So what if she saw it? What was she going to use to soothe it? What was she going to use to heal it? Sighing, Gu Mengmeng smiled and said, "I won't force you if you don't want to say it. But if one day, you want to confide in me, I will always be here." Leah was still smiling. He swung his big furry tail and said, "Looks like I am not completely unloved as a beast pet." Gu Mengmeng smiled cooperatively. She did not reply or refute. "Beast pet, huh?" Gu Mengmeng smiled and said. She would just treat it as a Samoyed being raised at home. One day, when Lee's inner demons were resolved, he would naturally go to search for that vast world. By then, as the messenger of the beast deity, she would not be able to keep him. With Lee's intelligence, it was too easy for him to get rid of his pet beast. At most, he could just give him a new identity like in the movies. Wasn't he the one in power now? It was still possible for him to create a new identity for Leah. However, he could only try to bluff them with his mouth. Leah stood up and took a strand of hair from each side of his ear, and tied it behind his head. As he did so, he said, "Oh right. When I came back from Sandy's place, Colin asked me to ask you, what kind of mail is that?" Gu Mengmeng was taken aback for a moment before she smiled knowingly. "That blockhead has been enlightened?" Leah considered for a moment before nodding his head. "Sandy is in a lot of pain." She won't say anything other than pain. Colin's heart ached so much that he said he wanted to stay by Sandy's side forever to protect her. But when he confessed to Sandy, Sandy only cried out in pain with red eyes. She cried especially miserably. Gu Mengmeng face-bombed. She thought to herself, "Sandy, You and Colin are really a pair of enemies. Shaking her head helplessly, Gu Mengmeng smiled bitterly. How do you feel about Sandy's injury? Can she participate in tonight's ceremony? Leah nodded. It should be difficult for her to walk on her own. But if you want her to participate, I can ask a few males to carry her over. Aside from the topic, the disgusting fellow is gone. Next, we will be handing out candy. Say, what kind of CP do you think Sandy and Colin should be called? How about CP for disco? Haha, such an ancient name. Chapter 347. Gu Mengmeng nodded and said, All right, find a few reliable ones and don't tear Sandy's wound open. Leah nodded and asked again, For tonight's campfire party, is it really all right to do as you say? Gu Mengmeng smiled slyly and said, I am the messenger of the beast deity. When it comes to playing with fire, who could be better at it than me? Leah also smiled and nodded in agreement. He then said, Then I will go and arrange it. Gu Mengmeng said, Sai, call Colin back and tell him that I want to tell him what kind of that kind of male is. Leah agreed and said, All right. After Leah left, Gu Mengmeng pulled Elvis back to the cave and found 2 leopard skins for Elvis to make a new set of clothes for her. Elvis didn't ask much and just did whatever Gu Mengmeng said. When Colin came back, Gu Mengmeng was already standing in front of everyone in the cool leopard print outfit. Colin looked at Gu Mengmeng and twitched his lips without saying a word. Gu Mengmeng said, Just say what you want to say. Colin pointed at Gu Mengmeng's clothes and said, The beast skin you are wearing is so weird. Gu Mengmeng sked and said, What do you know? This is called fashion. Colin shrugged his shoulders. He didn't know fashion, he only knew food. Gu Mengmeng didn't pursue the matter and just hooked her finger to beckon Colin to come closer. Then she whispered into his ear, Later on you will be like this, then. Do you understand? Colin blinked his eyes and looked at Gu Mengmeng with a face full of question marks. Gu Mengmeng slapped his chest harshly and said, Do you want to mate with Sandy? Colin nodded seriously and said, Yes. Gu Mengmeng said, Then do as I say and don't talk nonsense. Colin nodded seriously again and said, All right. That night was the first time Saint Nazir hosted a real campfire party. There was no killing between members of the same tribe, and no staining of the mahogany tower with fresh blood. There was only the warm glow of the fire, and the alluring aroma of the large amount of food. Sandy was arranged to be in the position closest to Gu Mengmeng, even though Gu Mengmeng had yet to appear. Sandy could only lie there in a daze, staring at the flames like a bear. Bode brought the roasted meat to Sandy's mouth. She didn't even open her mouth to take it. She just shook her head absent-mindedly and continued to stare blankly. Suddenly, a loud thud startled everyone. Bode's first reaction was to protect Sandy as he looked around cautiously. Dong. Dong dong. Another 2 strong and powerful voices rang out. These voices were very unfamiliar, but they made one's blood boil. Following the direction of the sound, 2 people walked out slowly from behind the fire. One of them was a 2-meter-tall burly man carrying a strange thing in his arms, while the petite figure walking in front of him was Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng was wearing a leopard print horizontal bra. In order to cover her overly feminine 36D breasts, she had specially designed the bra to be a bandage style, making it look like a little war prince. She gave up on wearing a skirt for her lower body, and instead wore a pair of shorts that reached the middle of her thighs and knees, lengthening Gu Mengmeng's legs. Other than the bra and shorts, Gu Mengmeng's sleeveless cloak was the most eye-catching. It made a loud noise in the wind and under the illumination of the fire. She looked like a deity from another world, carrying a mission, hope and a fatal temptation that made one unable to shift their eyes away. Aside from the topic, yes, Gu Mengmeng was prepared to flirt with a mistress in front of her husband. When Gu Mengmeng met Sandy, she felt a hormonal change. Was it an illusion? Chapter 348. Colin placed the thing in his arms according to Gu Mengmeng's instructions. Everyone did not know what it was, but upon closer inspection, it seemed to be a cross-section of a tree trunk, half the height of a human, with a layer of what looked like deerskin on top. Gu Mengmeng had 2 wooden sticks in her hands. One end of the wooden stick was the size of a fist, wrapped in animal skin. Gu Mingming flipped herself onto that strange thing, then handed the 2 wooden sticks in her hands to Colin. She stood on the piece of wood wrapped in animal skin, raised her feet high, and jumped dong. A loud sound, like the roar of thunder. The scene was silent, and everyone's gaze naturally gathered on Gu Mingming. She lifted her cloak with one hand, and the cloak fluttered in the wind amidst the firelight. She lifted her right foot, and when it landed again, another loud sound was heard. If you don't like to listen to my song, please close your ears. Next, I'm going to start a massacre and pierce through your eardrums. Gu Mingming raised her hand, and Colin used the 2 wooden sticks to knock on the deerskin. The opening of the outliers was full of vigor, and everyone's attention was on Gu Mingming, as if they were so shocked that they could not move. Her body did not emit any so-called pressure of a powerhouse, but it made everyone forget to even breathe. I'm fearless. Let all my opponents have a taste of it. Follow me, follow me, follow me, and scream as loud as I can. After Gu Mingming finished singing this sentence, Colin transformed into a bear, roaring at the sky. Although the rhythm was not quite right, the effect was extremely good, adding an authentic wild element to the song, making it seem even wilder and more unruly. As orcs did not have any concept of rhythm, Gu Mingming originally tried to teach Colin to sing with her, but he really could not control any tone other than roaring. Hence, Gu Mingming could only settle for the next best thing. She agreed on a few actions with Colin, and as long as Gu Mingming performed this action, he would use the wooden stick to knock on the deerskin. With this kind of cooperation, it was considered a tacit understanding. When Gu Mingming finished singing the last sentence with all her might, the sound of tearing. Then she took a wooden stick from Colin's hand, jumped up high and hit the deerskin heavily. After a deafening sound, Gu Mingming panted heavily and sat sideways at her original spot. She stepped on the edge of the deerskin with one knee bent, and the other leg hanging down casually. One of his hands was placed on his bent knee, while the other was holding a wooden stick, which he carelessly tapped on the center of the deerskin, making a slow but clear sound. Colin followed Gu Mingming's instructions, and carried the weird thing that could make a sound along with Gu Mingming, before walking to Sandy, who was lying on the ground. Gu Mingming winked at Sandy with her single eye and smiled rather mischievously. Taking a deep breath, he slowly began to sing, "You are my queen, ruling my planet." Sandy's dark and bright eyes stared at Gu Mingming without blinking. From her smile and gaze, Sandy clearly knew that this song was for her. Gu Mingming stood up and knelt on the ground with one knee. She placed her right hand on her left chest, just like an ancient European knight, exuding a strong and seductive aura of hormones. "Raise my hand and place it on my chest, swearing my loyalty to you." Gu Mingming sang, danced and flirted at the same time. Not only Sandy, even the males at the side were dumbfounded. Their faces were red and their hearts were racing. They felt as if their eyes were filled with blood. They really wanted to step forward and say, "Let go of that bear, come at me if you dare." Digression. The first song was Su Guiyang's version of Aliens, and the second was Luo Zhixiang's My Queen. I will share these 2 songs in the QQ group for everyone to listen to if you are interested. Besides, Chapter 349. When she sang the last line, "My dear queen, the night is waiting. Please follow me step by step to the throne of love." At the same time, Colin knelt down on one knee in front of Sandy, just like how Gu Mingming did at the beginning, like a Roman warrior swearing his loyalty. He stared at Sandy seriously and sincerely. "I, Colin, am willing to pledge my loyalty to you, to protect you in the name of a knight for a lifetime, for a lifetime." Sandy had yet to return to her senses from Gu Mingming's teasing. Her expression was a little dazed and she did not know what was going on. She just felt that Gu Mingming was exceptionally attractive today. Even Colin seemed to be more charming than usual. Gu Mingming hugged Sandy's little head and whispered into her ear, "Nod." Sandy still did not understand what was going on, so she nodded according to Gu Mingming's words. Then she saw Colin suddenly stand up, raising both his hands up high and roaring in excitement. Sandy was first shocked, but soon after, she understood what was going on. Her face heated up, and she turned to look at Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming smiled and patted her little head, saying, This man is yours. Sandy's face turned even redder, her furry paws on Gu Mingming's arm not letting her go. But Gu Mingming smiled and kissed Sandy's head, saying, "Now I'm going back to find my man." With that, she patted Sandy's little hand, retracted her arm and stood up. Passing by Colin, Gu Mingming punched his chest, saying generously, "My Sandy is still injured, you be gentler." "I know." Gu Mingming shook her head, looking at Colin's honest and serious look, thinking to herself that he was indeed handsome for no more than 3 seconds. Luckily, she had taught him to memorize that confession beforehand, or else when Sandy recalled Colin's proposal in the future, she would probably only remember Sandy, "I love you." Gu Mingming did not even manage to jump twice before she was lifted into the air. With both feet off the ground, she instinctively wrapped her arms around that person's neck. Tilting her head, she indeed met with that pair of familiar and deep eyes. Smiling sweetly, Gu Mingming asked, "Hubby, do I sing well?" Elvis kissed away the beads of sweat on Gu Mingming's forehead. His lips curved upwards and his eyes were filled with deep affection. His tone was sour. "What position do I have in your heart?" Why do you ask?" Gu Mingming asked, finding it funny. "How long have you neglected me because of those 4 wolf pups?" Elvis inched closer to Gu Mingming's ear and wanted to bite her in anger, but in the end he just sucked on her earlobe lightly. "Ha, Aya, stop fooling around, it's ticklish." Gu Mingming chuckled as she begged for mercy. She snuggled into Elvis's arms and said, "There's a famous person from where I came from who once said, the so-called father-daughter relationship only means that your fate with him is to watch his back view disappear into the distance in this lifetime. You stand at the end of the path and watch him disappear at the corner of the path. He uses his back view to silently tell you, don't chase, don't chase. Children will eventually grow up and have their own families. One day they will leave us and we will also grow old one day. How can we not cherish each other while we still have each other now? Don't you agree?" "Yeah." He then narrowed his eyes and said, "But today, because of Sandy, you left the 4 of them in the cave for an entire afternoon. Now the sky is already dark." Gu Mingming looked at Elvis and said, "But today for Sandy, you left the 4 of them in the cave for an entire afternoon. Aside from the topic, I'm so busy today, Sandy and Colin's wedding. I'm giving out wedding sweets in the VIP group." Chapter 350. Gu Mingming felt a little guilty and shrunk her neck, saying, "Didn't you say that our cave is very safe and the children will be fine at home?" Elvis smiled. "I said, the wolf cubs are more important than me. Sandy is more important than the wolf cubs. What about me? In your heart, how many people are more important than me?" Gu Mingming wrapped her arms around Elvis's neck and kissed his face hard, saying, "Nonsense, Sandy is important. The babies are important, but you are the most important. In my heart, there is no one more important than you, not a single one." Elvis carried Gu Mingming and sat by the side of the burning wooden pagoda. His pale blue eyes looked an ambiguous orange because of the firelight. He raised his eyebrows and played with Gu Mingming's fingers, saying, "Nina seduced me in front of you, but not only were you not angry at that time, it seemed like you even wanted to make space for her." Gu Mingming recalled that something like that happened when she first arrived at the tribe, but Nina came looking like she was the official in charge of catching an adulterer. Who the hell knew if there was something going on between the 2 of them? If they didn't make space, would they have to buy tickets to watch? Did they? Why don't I remember? "Yes," Elvis answered with certainty, then sighed. "But once Nina bullied Sandy, you immediately rushed up to stand up for her. In order to help Sandy, you even threw yourself to the ground and acted pitiful." Gu Mingming's mouth twitched, saying, "It's all in the past. Why are you still holding a grudge? Don't bring up the past. As a man, a wolf must be more broad-minded. It's a waste of brain cells to keep remembering small things in the past, isn't it?" "Right." Elvis nodded as a form of agreement, then said, "Let's not talk about the past, let's talk about the present." Gu Mingming smiled apologetically, saying, "Yes, let's talk about the present. Life is so beautiful now. Look, hugging a soft and fragrant body. It's the glory of a wolf's life, isn't it?" Elvis laughed coldly, saying, "Sandy has 2 songs, one of which you have sung twice. But I only have one, and I've only heard it once. Gu Mingming face-bombed. She continued Baridu Baiki. Question, hubby is easily jealous, and it's 1,000-year-old vinegar. How should I deal with it? Can I add some soy sauce to balance it? It's urgent, I'm waiting online. Elvis continued to speak slowly in a low voice. Moreover, you are especially gentle toward Sandy. She will hug you whenever she wants to. Hug you whenever she wants to, but the moment I touch you, you will hide from me. Gu Mingming coughed twice, choking on her own saliva. She really wanted to ask Elvis. Doesn't your conscience hurt saying such things? When Sandy hugged her, it was really just a hug. Have you ever been obedient when you were hugging her? Think about how your 4 sons came to be. If she didn't hide, she would die on the bed. You just sang. She's your queen? You want to serve her? And protect her happiness? Elvis's face darkened even more. He was clearly near the fire, but he was so gloomy that ink could drip from his face. Gu Mingming smiled awkwardly and wrapped her arms around Elvis's waist, saying, Who said I don't want you to hug me? Aren't you hugging me now? Come, hug me all the time, alright? The corners of Elvis's lips moved slightly. He raised his chin and tightened his arms, encircling Gu Mingming. He took a deep breath and looked at Sandy, just short of writing the words, I won on his face. Aside from the topic, Gu Mingming. Question, hubby is easily jealous and always fights with his best friend and son, but he keeps giving the green light to his ex-boyfriend. What should I do? It's quite urgent. Ned is in question. I feel that your hubby giving the green light to your ex-boyfriend might be cheating on you. Chapter 351. Saint Nazir was in a frenzy for that night's revelry. Other than Gu Mingming, Colin was the most popular person. Although he only stood behind Gu Mingming and did some manual labor, his only line was the one where he proposed to Sandy, but it still caused a sensation. Deep in the night, Ian leaned against a tree and looked down at the revelry with an indifferent expression. Leah sat beside him and handed him a piece of roasted meat. Do you mind if I don't let you show yourselves? Ian didn't take the food from Leah. Instead, he fixed his gaze on the bashful figure in the leader's arms. That tiny figure had attracted everyone's attention the moment she appeared. It was as if she had a magical power that no one could resist. Is she really the messenger of the beast deity? Ian seemed to be doubtful and muttering to himself. Leah smiled. The food that allowed your tribesmen to survive the cold winter is still not enough to prove her identity? Ian didn't say anything. Why should he reply? Food, singing, and fire. Retracting his gaze, Ian glanced sideways at Leah. This is the reason why you were so confident back then? Leah nodded. The birds are the ones who yearn for the beast deity the most, isn't it? The arrival of the messenger means that all the birds in the beast world will flock to her. Once her identity is known, would there be anyone who would come to seek shelter? Ian nodded. Leah was right. The tribes that soared in the sky yearn to be close to the beast deity the most. Since that's the case, why did you choose us? After all, there are only 32 of us left in our tribe. Leah smiled. His gaze landed on the little figure who was playing around in Elvis's arms. She's a little willful and is the most unstable factor in all my plans. In order to deal with her sudden whims, I need to have more bargaining chips in my hands. Only then can I ensure that nothing goes wrong, and let her be willful to her heart's content. Ian was taken aback for a moment. Then he laughed. So the Snow Fox tribe also has affections. I thought you guys are different from normal orcs and would not change because of females. Snow Fox tribe? Leah savored this form of address and smiled faintly. This tale is probably the only useful thing left to me by this tribe. With that, Leah did not bother about Ian anymore. He transformed into a fox and started running in the dark. His goal was clear and distinct. Ian stood on the spot, holding the roasted meat left behind by Leah in his hands. He watched as the white figure dashed through the night sky to the side of the bonfire, and shamelessly waved his large tail in front of the little female to beg for her affection. His lips curled upwards as he said, Messenger of the beast deity, Gu Mingming. 3 days later, Gu Mingming packed her luggage and prepared to leave the beauty pageant. She had wanted to bring Sandy along to play, but Sandy's injuries had not fully recovered. Moreover, she was still a newlywed with Colin. Gu Mingming was too embarrassed to separate her. She just smiled and poked at the black bear mark on Sandy's chest. She reminded her to be careful and not to make too big of a move to tear open her wounds again. If Leah was not around, no one would be able to help her. Sandy blushed and twisted her body in Gu Mingming's arms for a long time. In the end, Colin came and carried Sandy up. He said sternly, "Gu Mingming has something to do. Don't pester her and waste her time." Then he pulled Sandy away from Gu Mingming's side. Gu Mingming looked at Sandy, who was clearly looking at her longingly, but still had her arms wrapped around Colin's neck obediently. She could not help but give Colin a thumbs up. "Not bad, Colin. You're a real man." Digression. Come, send out a notice. Tomorrow morning, send out breakfast. Meat stew. How to eat meat. Readers. 4927792773. After entering the group, find the corresponding administrator to provide a screenshot of the fan points for verification. Chapter 352. According to tradition, other than the partners of Sandy and Maya, the tribesmen of St. Nazaire should follow the females who were participating in the beauty pageant. Firstly, it was to protect the prettiest female in the tribe. Secondly, if they met someone they fancied in the beauty pageant, they could just follow them. But this time, the situation was a little special. None of the males who followed them wanted to change tribes. Instead, they were all here to protect Gu Mingming with their lives. Originally, there were only 130 males in the tribe. Because of Nina, they lost over 40 males in one go. Although they did not have the mating mark and did not need to die even if Nina died, but no matter what kind of female Nina was, she was still the love of their lives. After Nina died, they sealed Nina's cave and buried all of them alive in the cave. Out of the remaining 80 over people, excluding Sandy's 9 partners and Maya's 15 partners, they could only bring out 60 over people. Gu Mingming also left Oakley and Barit in the tribe. One was smart and the other was strong. They could be considered as the imitation versions of Elvis and Leah. With the two of them in the tribe, together with the males from Sandy and Maya's families, there should be no problem in looking after the house. Gu Mingming originally wanted to bring all 4 of her sons along. But Elvis and Leah told her that the journey was long and bumpy. Other than meeting normal wild beasts, they might also meet stray beasts. If they met with danger, they would only protect Gu Mingming. If Gu Mingming wanted to bring the 4 little ones along, and if an accident happened this was definitely a blatant threat. Gu Mingming clenched her teeth. In the end, she did not dare to bring her 4 sons along. So she handed the 4 little ones over to their future mother-in-law, Sandy, to help take care of them. She especially instructed Sandy not to act out any restricted scenes in front of her children. If she were to lead her sons astray, she would break off all ties with them. After a day's journey, although Gu Mingming was carried or hunched by Elvis like an empress dowager and did not get off the ground at all, she was still extremely tired. Nestled in Elvis's arms, Gu Mingming frowned and said, "Sai, what kind of lousy beauty pageant is this? Can't I not go? Why is there no internet in this broken place? Why don't we just open a live broadcast and sing and dance at home? Just send out the location, and we can choose whoever we want. That's it. I'm so tired." Elvis also felt sorry for Gu Mingming. In the past, when he sent Nina to the beauty pageant, she started complaining the moment they left the tribe. Unlike Gu Mingming, who only grumbled in his arms before falling asleep after walking for an entire day. "Tomorrow we'll walk slower. If you're tired, you can tell me anytime. We can rest anytime." Elvis kissed Gu Mingming's little head and said gently, "Sleep, I'll guard you." Yeah. Gu Mingming found a comfortable spot in Elvis's arms and slowly fell asleep. Her thick eyelashes fluttered once in a while, and under the gentle moonlight, she looked like a fairy. Elvis stared at Gu Mingming's sleeping face. He did not even know how gentle he looked. He lightly caressed her little face with his hand, and the delicate touch on his fingertips made Elvis a little restless. Gu Mingming moaned and shook her head, as if she was unhappy that someone had disturbed her sleep. Just this small action caused the fragrance on her body to spread out in waves, making him even more mesmerized. Elvis could not help but recall the day they mated. She also fell asleep like this, in his arms, defenseless. That day, she had tormented him to the point of no return. Although he finally got what he wanted, but during the time she was asleep. Thinking about this, Elvis's body started to heat up, as if a ball of fire was burning uncontrollably in his body. It started from his chest and slowly moved downwards, stopping at his lower abdomen. Aside from the topic, there are 3,215 words of extra material, which was shared in the VIP group. Babies who have already entered the V group, please take it yourself. Babies who have not entered the VIP group, please join the reader group. For 92779273 to verify the fan value. Babies who have a fan value of 800 can be added into the VIP group by the administrator. Chapter 353. When Gu Mengmeng finally woke up from her dream, she realized that she was lying on Elvis's back and moving forward in the forest. The landform here was completely different from the place she had fallen asleep at. Rubbing her eyes, she sat up and asked, "How long did I sleep for?" Leah handed over a fruit that looked fresh and especially tempting. Gu Mengmeng took a bite, and it was so sweet that she felt like she was surrounded by happiness. Leah looked at Gu Mengmeng's satisfied look and his gaze became gentle. He patted her head and said, "You have slept for a day and a half. How are you? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere?" Gu Mengmeng shook her head blankly and instantly understood what Leah was saying. Her face turned red and the fruit that she had just swallowed got stuck in her throat, causing her to choke and cough. Leah carried Gu Mengmeng up and used his knee to push against her stomach. He then patted her back and Gu Mengmeng forcefully coughed out the fruit stuck in her throat. Her face was already extremely red. Elvis transformed into human form and took Gu Mengmeng from Lee's arms. He pried open her mouth and looked at her throat carefully. He sighed and said, "Be more careful next time and don't choke again, understand?" Gu Mengmeng nodded obediently and passed the fruit to Elvis. "Try it, it's really delicious." Elvis shook his head lightly and said, "This is for females to eat. It can alleviate the discomfort after mating." Gu Mengmeng was instantly petrified. The fruit in her hand no longer looked tempting. Instead, it was like a bomb that had started its countdown. She wanted to throw it, but was afraid that it would explode the moment it touched the ground. "It's all right. Anyway, everyone knows that you have mated for a day and 2 nights, so you don't have to be shy. Just eat it." Leah smiled as he pushed the fruit to Gu Mengmeng's mouth. His smile was especially gentle, but there was an obvious cold glint in his eyes. "I heard that your throat was hoarse from all the yelling that night. Eat some fruits with sufficient moisture to nourish your throat." Damn it, it shouldn't be a mistake to do OXX with her own husband, right? Why did she feel like she was being dragged to be paraded on the streets after having an affair? Gu Mengmeng turned her head and buried her face back into Elvis's chest, grumbling softly, "I told you we can't do it outside, look at you, so annoying." Elvis straightened his body and hooked Gu Mengmeng's chin with his finger. His brows unknowingly touched together, and he looked at Gu Mengmeng with a hurt expression. "Did I make you feel embarrassed?" Gu Mengmeng was taken aback. She shook her head and said, "What nonsense are you saying? I'm just... how can I let others know about this kind of thing? How embarrassing." Elvis stared straight at Gu Mengmeng, his eyes filled with tenderness. His voice was low, as if he was a little sad as he asked, "On the day we mated, you said you wanted to announce our relationship to the world. Was it all a lie?" Gu Mengmeng really regretted not letting the fruit choke her to death. Elvis seemed to lack a sense of security in certain aspects. It was as if he always felt that Gu Mengmeng would abandon him anytime. Gu Mengmeng did not know where Elvis's feeling came from, but she had experienced this kind of uneasiness before. Chapter 354. Elvis then smiled and kissed Gu Mengmeng's forehead gently. "You slept for a day and a half and did not eat anything. Are you hungry?" Gu Mengmeng rubbed her tummy and nodded with a smile. Elvis said, "Stay here and wait for me. I'll go hunting." Gu Mengmeng held onto Elvis's arm, unwilling to let go. She looked at the 60 over tribesmen guarding at the side and said, "Let them go. Can't you stay here and accompany me? Elvis gently stroked the stray hair beside Gu Mingming's ear and said, I have to prepare your food myself, because I don't want to give others the chance to fawn over you. Gu Mingming bashfully punched Elvis's chest and said with a red face, annoying. Elvis kissed Gu Mingming's lips and said, Wait for me. I'll be back soon. If you meet with any danger, just hit our mating mark hard and I'll rush back. Gu Mingming nodded obediently and said, Then take care of your safety. Elvis smiled and agreed. Then he whistled and a few hunting experts followed Elvis into the forest. Leah arranged for people to gather materials to start a fire and draw water to prepare for roasting meat. He swayed his furry big tail and leaned towards Gu Mingming. He supported his chin with his hand and looked at Gu Mingming from the corner of his eye. Gu Mingming remained silent for a while and turned to look at Leah. She said, Thank you for that night. Leah raised his brow and asked, Which night? Gu Mingming blushed and lowered her head. She fiddled with her fingers and said, You used the fox seductive fragrance on me, right? Leah was a little shocked but only for a moment. He did not deny it and only said, You found out? Gu Mingming nodded and said, Thank you for helping me reduce the pain. But I don't need it in the future. Why? Leah was puzzled and asked, The fox seductive fragrance only made the mating process between you and Elvis smoother. Other than adding some interest, it won't affect you much. Instead, it will make you suffer less. Why not? Gu Mingming smiled shyly. She thought for a while before replying. No matter how painful or sweet the process was, it is still a precious memory between us as husband and wife. The fox seductive fragrance makes me lose control of my mind. As if someone is controlling my body to hug Elvis. This feeling makes me very uncomfortable. Lee's smile froze for a moment before he nodded. I was being a busybody. I'm sorry. Gu Mingming shook her head and smiled. I don't mean to blame you. It's quite refreshing to do it once in a while. However, the novelty between husband and wife was just a temporary adjustment. True feelings for each other were the long-term solution. So, please don't use the fox seductive fragrance on me anymore, okay? Leah pursed his lips and smiled faintly. That won't do. Even if I don't want to use it when we mate in the future, I won't be able to control it. Gu Mingming knew that Leah had purposely said that to hide his disappointment. He should have already understood that between her and Elvis, there was no place for him. Not exposing him was Gu Mingming's last kindness to Leah. Standing up, Gu Mingming sat beside the fire. Her gaze drifted towards the direction where Elvis had disappeared to. She cupped her chin and waited for the silhouette of the black wolf to return. Elvis and the rest did not leave for long. It was just that when they returned, there was an uninvited guest in their group. When Gu Mingming stood up to welcome them, she saw half a head peeking out from behind Elvis, looking at her timidly. Moreover, there was an eyesore hand clutching tightly onto the edge of Elvis's beefskin dress. Aside from the topic, that has Meaty finished watching? If you have, remember to vote for your ticket. Without the ticket, the next meal of Meaty would be so far away. No. This is not a threat, this is, not a friendly negotiation. Chapter 355. Gu Mingming frowned, but before she could say anything, she heard Elvis glare at the person who was grabbing her hide dress coldly and said, I warned you before, don't touch me. I'm sorry. I'm just too scared. That person was scared out of her wits by Elvis. She hurriedly let go of her hand and took a step back, looking like she was about to cry. It was a pity that Elvis did not even look at her. Elvis heaved a heavy sigh, his face full of displeasure. Looking at his beast-skin dress that had been scratched, he was in a terrible mood. Gu Mingming finally saw her full appearance after the female took a step back. Her dark green hair was draped over her shoulders, and she was wearing a simple hide on her upper body. It looked like it was torn and looked like it was going to fall at any moment, unable to cover her impressive fullness. Her lower body snake? Gu Mingming was calculating in her heart. This pose, should she kneel down and worship 3 times, offer a jaw stick and say Goddess Nuwa, or should she stand on a rock with a gourd on her head and shout Vixen, return my grandfather? Although the bullet screen mode had already been activated in her heart, Gu Mingming did not show any expression on her face. She pulled Elvis's pants in front of her and tidied up the hide that was slightly crooked because of the stranger's gentle pull. Her eyes were focused on her hands and she asked in a neutral tone, "Hubby, who is she?" Elvis sharply felt Gu Mingming's anger. Although he did not know why, he knew that Gu Mingming was definitely angry. Could it be that Gu Mingming was hungry after being out for too long? Yeah, that must be it. She would not be in a good mood once she was hungry. Thinking about this, Elvis hurriedly explained, "Are you hungry? Don't worry, I have hunted a lot of prey and I have already asked Darch to handle it. You can eat it soon." This was a rule that Elvis and Leah had personally set for Gu Mingming. All prey was not allowed to be brought back whole. After the male hunted the prey, he had to first use his claws to cut off the better meat and store it in his hide bag. Then he would finish off the meatless and hard-to-chew parts in the wild. After returning, he must first clean the food prepared for the female before bringing it back. He was not allowed to deal with the prey in front of the female, nor was he allowed to let the female know what the prey of the day was. However, the males would remember the meat that the females said was delicious, and would find more for them in the future. Unfortunately, Elvis had misunderstood the main point. Gu Mingming's hand was still on Elvis's pants, but she looked up and stared at Elvis's face, asking, "Let me ask you, who is she?" Elvis looked back blankly at the terrified female standing not far away and said, "I picked her up on the road." Gu Mingming laughed coldly and said, "Tribe leader is really good at picking. First you picked me, then you picked her. TSK. Females aren't that valuable in the beast world, yet you've already picked two of them so casually." Elvis was stunned for a long while before he suddenly laughed and pulled her into his arms. He asked excitedly, "Xiaoming, are you jealous? You're jealous, aren't you? You're jealous." Gu Mingming felt as if someone had stepped on her tail and she exploded. "Eat your head." "I'm not." Elvis stiffened and sighed in disappointment. Every cell in his body was expressing his disappointment, and he said in a low voice, "Oh, I thought you would also mind if other females get close to me, just like." Elvis's gaze drifted towards Leah. God knew how jealous he was of Gu Mingming rushing over to snatch Leah and Nina away when she knew they were going to mate. If one day Gu Mingming could also be jealous because of him, how good would that be? Chapter 356. Gu Mingming cleared her throat and pinched Elvis's waist harshly. She crooked her finger and gestured for Elvis to come closer. Although Elvis felt uncomfortable, he still obediently moved closer, thinking that Gu Mingming wanted to whisper something to him. In the end, Gu Mingming grabbed his ear and twisted it harshly. She placed one hand on her waist like a female yiksha and shouted, "Yes, I am jealous, so what? Let me tell you, Elvis, if you don't tell me who she is today, see if I will let you off." "Ouch, ouch, ouch. Pain, 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 pain." Elvis laughed as he cried out in pain. He looked a little silly, but was completely different from his bloodthirsty self in the forest. That female took a step forward and pulled Elvis's arm lightly, saying, "This beautiful little female, you have misunderstood the great tribe leader. He just saw injustice and saved me. There is nothing between us." Gu Mingming let go of Elvis and grabbed the female's wrist that was pulling Elvis. She twisted it outwards, and it was a simple female self-defense technique. She easily twisted the female's hand behind her back and leaned against her back. She whispered into her ear, "I am a clean freak, especially when it comes to men. Whoever dares to stretch their claws towards my man, I will make sure that she will not be able to return." That female turned her head and a cold light shone in her eyes. If Gu Mingming was not so close to her, she would not have noticed it. She only used a moment to retract her gaze and put on a pitiful look, saying, You have really misunderstood me. There is really nothing between the great tribe leader and me." Sob, sob, sob. "Why do you have to bully me like this? My hand hurts so much." Gu Mingming laughed coldly and thought to herself, "Wow, you have some skills. Alright, since I am bored, I will play with you." So Gu Mingming used her hidden strength to push the female forward. She seemed to be anticipating Gu Mingming to do that. Even her falling motion looked especially gentle and graceful. But what she did not expect was that Gu Mingming landed on the ground earlier than her, falling below her. Xiaomeng. Elvis dashed over like a gust of wind and pushed away the female that almost fell on Gu Mengmeng. He scooped Gu Mengmeng into his arms and examined her carefully. Leah reached Gu Mengmeng's side almost at the same time. He looked at the broken skin on her knee and turned his head, his long and narrow eyes filled with murderous intent. No, it's not like that. That female was prepared to fall down, so even if she fell down, she would not be badly injured. But after being pushed by Elvis, she fell down hard. She had wanted to gain sympathy, but when she looked up, she met Lee's murderous eyes and was so frightened that she could not even speak properly. Sob, sob, sob. Elvis, you have a change of heart, haven't you? Gu Mengmeng's punches landed on Elvis's chest like raindrops. Even with eye drops, it was obvious that she was faking her tears. But her clumsy acting made Elvis's heart ache, and he felt wronged. Other than shaking his head, he could not explain himself. He wanted to look at the wound on her knee, but she stood up stubbornly and limped forward. Her shoulders trembled as she said, "You brought a female back from the outside and pestered her in front of me. I only asked her who she was and you allowed her to kill me? Sob, sob, sob. Elvis, you don't want me now that you have a new lover, am I right?" Aside from the topic, author, Gu Mengmeng, did you graduate from an acting academy? Chapter 357. Sob, sob, sobs. It hurt so much. Gu Mengmeng hugged her knees and buried her face between her legs. Unable to squeeze out any tears, she could only shake her shoulders and turn herself into vibrator mode. Xiaomeng, let Leah treat your injuries first, alright? Elvis felt extremely helpless. No matter how precious a female was to the tribe, if he knew that bringing her back would make Gu Mengmeng so angry and upset, he would definitely not have brought her back. Don't worry about it, just go and coax your new lover. Do you still care about my life or death? We haven't even mated for a year, and you're already complaining that I'm getting old. Sobs, sobs, sobs. I'm not. Elvis was so anxious that he could not speak. After holding it in for a long while, he finally said, "How about I throw her back to where I picked her up, alright?" Gu Mengmeng then stopped her vibrator mode and looked up at Elvis, asking, "Won't your heart ache to throw such a good female away?" Seeing that she was finally willing to raise her head, Elvis heaved a sigh of relief and hugged Gu Mengmeng back into his arms, coaxing her. "Other than my queen, I won't feel heartache for anyone else. Don't cry, let Leah treat your injuries. I'll go and throw her away now." With that, Elvis sent Gu Mengmeng to Leah, then turned and walked towards that female with a black face. That female did not expect the plot to develop in this direction, and was momentarily stunned. But she quickly reacted and grabbed onto the nearest male beside her, saying, "Warrior, please save me. If I'm thrown back into the forest, I'll definitely be caught by stray beasts again, and I won't be able to survive then. Sobs, sobs, sobs. Help me plead with the tribe leader, alright? Let me join your tribe. I can mate with you. I can mate with you now, please save me." Tribe leader. That male was a little hesitant. He pushed the messenger of the beast deity and caused her to be injured. If it was a male, he would have been torn apart by the crowd. But females were really too precious. The tribe just lost a female, it's time to add another. Leah looked up at Gu Mengmeng and gave her a look. Then he continued, "Xiaomeng, can you forgive her for my sake this time?" Gu Mengmeng frowned. She looked at Leah, who was making faces at her, and muttered to herself, "Did he fall in love with her?" It made sense. Everyone in the tribe knew that he was her pet. Sandy and Maya would never mate with him. If he thought it through, he would have to find females outside the tribe. Based on his stubbornness toward Saint Nazir, it was impossible for him to change tribes, so the only path he could take was to mate with a new female. Gu Mengmeng twitched her lips, thinking that Leah really did not have good taste in women. But after all, this was his own life. Since she couldn't give him a promise, there was no reason for her to ruin his good fortune, right? Thus Gu Mengmeng sniffled and stretched out her arms towards Elvis, saying, "Hubby, my legs hurt, I want a hug." Elvis understood that Gu Mengmeng had agreed to Lee's request. Chapter 358. Gu Mingming pouted and said, "Would you believe me if I said it's not painful?" Elvis kissed Gu Mingming's little face with heartache and said, "I'll feed you some good food later to nourish you." Gu Mingming nodded and nestled in Elvis's arms. She looked at the female and their eyes met in the air. There was no verbal communication, and both of them looked like they were smiling. But only women could understand what the sparks in their eyes meant. That night, Leah arranged for a few males to protect the female while he called Elvis to bring Gu Mingming into the depths of the forest in the night. Elvis and Leah had been through life and death situations for many years, and they did not need words to communicate with each other. This kind of tacit understanding was especially useful at times like this. "What's wrong? Not letting me sleep in the middle of the night?" Gu Mingming grumbled. Leah and Elvis exchanged glances and held their breaths to listen for a while. After confirming that no one was eavesdropping, Leah then whistled towards the night sky. A huge owl spread its wings and flew over from the night sky, landing in front of Gu Mingming and Leah. Gu Mingming patted Leah curiously and said, "Oh, not bad. When did you train an owl? This physique, tsk so cool." Gu Mingming wanted to tease the owl, but it shook its wings and turned into a human in front of Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming was taken aback. Even though she had seen this trick of turning into a living person many times, she still felt shocked every time. Looking at the tall and cold naked man in front of her, Gu Mingming awkwardly retracted her demonic claws in midair. She chuckled and returned to Elvis's arms without saying a word. The naked man took over the beast skin dress from Leah and said while wearing it, "I'm Ian, from the Eagle Owl tribe, not an owl." Gu Mingming put on an enlightened expression and smiled, saying, "Oh, you're Ian. I've heard a lot about you. Sorry for not recognizing you." Ian actually could not handle Gu Mingming's trick. He cleared his throat and turned to Leah, saying, "Don't worry, I've arranged for someone to watch over her. She won't have the chance to eavesdrop." Leah then nodded, then looked at Gu Mingming and said, "I'm afraid that female was sent by Sauter." Gu Mingming was a little surprised, but after thinking about it, Leah was after all a member of Sauter, and a person of high status and authority, so he must be clearer than anyone else about Sauter's behavior. So he didn't refute. After thinking for a while, he said, "So you kept her here to keep an eye on her, not because you like her?" Leah paused for a moment and looked at Gu Mingming with his brows furrowed. He hooked Gu Mingming's chin with one hand and brought her little face closer to his. He looked straight into Gu Mingming's eyes with his long and affectionate eyes and said in a low and slow voice, "You suppressed your temper to make her stay, not because you understood my gaze, but because you want to give me to her? Am I already such a burden, troublesome, and disgusting existence to you?" "No, no." Gu Mingming retracted her chin guiltily and hid in Elvis's arms. Leah staggered 2 steps back and smiled bitterly. "You can't be unfaithful 100 times. This logic. I understand it all. Even if you already know that Nina's matter is fake, you can no longer trust my feelings for you, right? In your eyes, I'm just a heartless man who can have any female, right? Aside from the topic. Author. Gu Mingming, sometimes I really feel that you and Leah are quite compatible." Gu Mingming. "What do you mean?" Author. "Both of you are schoolmates." Gu Mingming. Author. "Both of you graduated from acting academy, right? Sigh. I feel that just the two of you can act out Xiong Yao's version of the complete works of Shakespeare." Chapter 359. "I didn't mean it that way, Leah. I'm sorry." Gu Mingming felt a little guilty. She didn't know her thoughts would make Leah so upset. Leah glanced sideways and stared into Gu Mingming's eyes. "Compared to an apology, I want to hear your confession more. You know." Gu Mingming pursed her lips and said in a low voice, "I'm sorry." Leah sighed deeply and didn't continue. He just adjusted his emotions and changed the topic back to that unfamiliar female. "It's still 2 days' journey from here to Sauter. We don't know what else that female will do. We have to be more vigilant. Gu Mingming, you especially have to avoid getting close to her like today." Lee's gaze landed on the wound on Gu Mingming's knee. He frowned. "Don't let yourself get hurt again. Or else we might go crazy." Gu Mingming nodded. "Don't worry, I will protect myself well." I'm just addicted to acting today. I'll spar with her. The three males looked at Gu Mingming blankly. They didn't seem to understand what she was saying. Gu Mingming twitched her lips. As expected, no matter how much time passes, males are always bad at judging bitches. Gu Mingming turned around and looked at Elvis. Didn't you realize that she was pretending to be gentle, innocent and pitiful the moment she came in? Elvis shook his head. I didn't notice. Gu Mingming laughed coldly. Ha, your acting was in vain. Gu Mingming took a deep breath. She braced herself and straightened her body as if she was preparing to give a speech. She pulled your beast skin dress the moment she came in today, right? Elvis was shocked. I threw that beast skin dress into the fire. You saw it. Gu Mingming patted his shoulder, gesturing for him to calm down. Then she continued. I only asked you who she was. Before you could answer, she ran out in a hurry to explain, saying, You've misunderstood. There's nothing between me and the great tribe leader. Right? Gu Mingming pinched her throat to mimic that female's words. Elvis, Leah and the rest did not laugh at all. They recalled seriously. After thinking for a long time, they still couldn't recall anything. They could only say calmly. Seems so? Gu Mingming sighed again. My acting was for nothing. Apart from me, no one else saw it. The three males looked at each other, then listened to Gu Mingming's analysis seriously and attentively, as if they were listening to an old driver talking about how he had flipped his car over and over again while driving. Gu Mingming cleared her throat and continued. This is the most common opening line used by green tea bitches. On the surface, she looked like she was explaining, but in actual fact, she was purposely causing me to misunderstand. With that innocent and terrified expression, coupled with her little action of pulling Elvis's skirt, it was easy for me to suspect that something had already happened between them in the forest. A chill ran down Elvis's spine and he instantly exploded. Xiaomeng, I swear I didn't. I. Gu Mingming cupped Elvis's face with both hands and kissed him gently. I know you didn't. I believe you. Only then did Elvis let out a long sigh of relief. His heart, which was hanging in his throat, finally settled down. With a lingering fear, she said, Then why did you say that I had a change of heart today? I was so scared that I wanted to cut open my chest to let you see if my heart was filled with you. Aside from the topic, recommending a new article to the little darlings who were lacking in books, the reborn first daughter Rakshasa, in her previous life, although she was the first daughter of the Lin family, she did not wish to participate in those schemes. She only wished to live a peaceful and ordinary life. Even when she was bullied by others, she just wanted to keep the peace. She tolerated everything and kept a low profile. But in the end, she was still schemed against and trusted the wrong person. Not only did she lose her reputation and ended up with her corpse abandoned in the wilderness, she even implicated everyone who loved her to be imprisoned, never to be reincarnated. The moment before her death, she finally came to her senses and was filled with regret. Now, God had given her a chance to return to this world. Her biological father was unkind and her sisters were unjust. Since that was the case, she might as well tear off this hypocritical veil and tear apart the scumbags and evil women. Those who bullied her. She would repay them 100 times over. Chapter 360. Gu Mingming placed her hand on Elvis's chest and said, Whether you have a change of heart, you don't have to go through the trouble of cutting open your stomach. I just need to look into your eyes and I will know. Elvis looked at Gu Mingming in confusion, and when he met her clear eyes he smiled. That's right, one's eyes could not lie. He could also easily tell how much Gu Mingming liked him from her eyes. The two of them looked at each other and smiled. Gu Mingming then continued, I made a scene today to give her a taste of her own medicine. I want to let her know that it's useless to play tricks with me. White and green, they are all leftovers from my play. The three males were dumbfounded again. They completely did not understand what Gu Mingming was saying. Elvis reached out to pluck a leaf from the side and passed it to Gu Mingming, saying, Green. You can play with it first. I will help you find a new one tomorrow. Gu Mingming was taken aback for a moment before she started laughing. Your IQ. Haha. You are indeed a husky. Elvis completely did not know what Gu Mingming was laughing about. But seeing her laughing so happily, the corners of his lips could not help but curl up. Gu Mingming laughed enough before continuing. Green refers to a green tea bitch. This kind of person is most commonly seen in my world. Pretending to be weak, innocent, pitiful and ignorant. The green tea bitches in my world are much more experienced than her. With her acting skills today, she is just a beginner in my world. A newbie who can fight against 5 trash. Then white. Leah looked at his own tail, and was a little worried. Gu Mingming said. White refers to a white lotus. Pretending to be the Virgin Mary, kind, pure and loving. Not only can I not hate you if you kill my entire family, but I will also forgive you, protect you, take care of you and influence you. The classic line is, how could you do that? What's the difference between you and him? It was as if everyone around her was mud. And they were the only white and flawless flower that was not tainted by dust. This kind of thing doesn't happen in real life where I come from, but I've seen a lot of them in TV dramas and novels. She's a self-taught person. She wants to compete with me, who has passed the 4th or 6th grade in palace dramas, and has a double postdoctorate in romance novels. TSK, 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 I'll give her 2 hands and 2 feet. I can stare her to death with just my pair of eyes. Elvis and Leah exchanged glances, deeply feeling that the war between females was far more terrifying than the war between males. What had they experienced today? What did I miss this time? He felt as if he had walked through a bloody battlefield, but he didn't realize that he had almost died on the battlefield. F***ck me. It was so dangerous. Then what do we do next? For the first time in his life, Leah felt that his brain was not enough. This had already exceeded the limits of his understanding. The females in Sauter in the past, were there any like this? Gu Mingming shrugged and said. It's not what we want, it's what she wants. Elvis frowned. Since it's so troublesome, why don't we just chase them away? Gu Mingming shook her head and said. Even if we chase away a lunatic today, there will be another one tomorrow. Instead of guarding against someone who we don't know when they will appear beside us, why not guard against someone we already know? The more we know she has a problem, the more we have to keep her under our eyes. As long as we make use of her properly, it will be a good thing for us. This is also the reason why Leah wanted me to agree to let her stay today, right? Aside from the topic. Author. Son TSK, you picked up a green tea bitch today. Elvis, I know. Author. How did you know? Elvis. My wife told me. Author. Do you understand what your wife analyzed for you? Elvis shook his head, expressing, I don't understand. But whoever my wife says is a green tea bitch is a green tea bitch. I'll listen to my wife. Author. You're intelligent. You're indeed my son. Update completed for today. Continue tomorrow. Babies, please vote for Susu. Chapter 361. Smart. Leah smiled approvingly and tapped Gu Mingming's brow. You're indeed the great messenger. You got it right away. Gu Mingming understood what Leah meant. He was trying his best to ease the awkward atmosphere. No matter how upset he was, he did not want her to feel guilty. So Gu Mingming played along and wrinkled her nose. She pretended to be proud and said, I'm a very low-profile person. I don't like to worship others. Moreover, don't mention this kind of thing that the whole world knows about. Leah smiled faintly. His eyes were filled with love. He replied gently, the great messenger is right. Gu Mingming cleared her throat. You guys better tell me about the beauty pageant first. What should I do then? Gu Mingming looked up at Elvis. You've been there many times, right? Tell me, will they be competing in singing, dancing, or poetry? Elvis kissed Gu Mingming's raised face. They'll compete in eating. Huh. Gu Mingming was dumbfounded. Isn't it a beauty pageant? Why did it change to an eating contest? Elvis smiled. The biggest insecurity of a male in the beast world comes from the fear that his partner will not survive the winter. The stronger the male, the more afraid he is of this. This was because once the female died, the weaker males would definitely die due to the backlash of the mating contract. However, the stronger males might not die. Most of the time, not being able to die itself is an even greater torture. Gu Mingming remained silent for a moment. She hugged Elvis's neck and asked, "Yeah, just like when you suddenly fainted when you were leveling up. I thought you were too seriously injured and could not survive. I felt extremely helpless then. I felt that if you were not around, my world would collapse. I don't know how I could survive without you in the beast world." Elvis's heart warmed at Gu Mingming's words. He kissed Gu Mingming's head and stroked her hair gently. "I'll protect you. I'll always protect you." Gu Mingming nodded her head obediently. She continued, "But what has this got to do with eating in a beauty pageant?" Elvis adjusted his position so that Gu Mingming could sit more comfortably. He then replied, "In the eyes of a male, the way a female eats is the most beautiful. The more a female could eat, the more energy she could store before winter, and the higher her chances of survival during winter. Therefore, this is one of the most basic and important factors for males to choose a mate." Gu Mingming smiled awkwardly. She recalled how Elvis and Leah racked their brains to trick her into eating food previously, and could not help but smile. "So you guys have been trying to make me eat food the entire winter, because you were afraid that I would not be able to survive and starve to death during the winter?" Elvis nodded his head seriously and pinched Gu Mingming's tummy twice. He sighed regretfully and said, "I didn't know you were pregnant at first and thought you had finally put on some weight. I was so happy, but you chased after me and beat me up for the entire day. You also looked very angry and I didn't eat properly for 3 whole days." Gu Mingming's eyes widened. Gu Mingming facepalmed and said, "We can store enough food before winter and eat slowly during the winter, so we don't have to eat ourselves into a ball. Look, last year we had salted meat, salted fish, potatoes and sweet potatoes. Although it was a little monotonous, it was mainly because time was too tight and I did not have time to find more. This year, I have experience and can definitely prepare more food in advance. Winter is not a problem at all. So don't worry, I won't starve myself to death and leave you alone. Moreover, we still have a son. I still want to live to a ripe old age and watch my son marry a wife." Aside from the topic. Chapter 362. Elvis automatically ignored the part about his son, and only heard Gu Mingming saying that she would not leave him alone. He smiled blissfully and then hugged Gu Mingming tightly in his arms, whispering into her ear, "Remember this promise, do you understand? Never leave me alone." "Yeah." Gu Mingming hugged Elvis back, smiling blissfully and gently. Leah cleared his throat, coughed and said, "Mingming, about that female. Do you want to ask someone to send her back to Saint Nazir now, or bring her?" Gu Mingming said without hesitation. "Comparing eating, even 8 of me can't beat one Sandy. Those who came to participate in the beauty pageant are all the eating generals from the tribes. It's not enough even if I become a force-fed duck. That female, ha ha ha, just in time to use her." "You want her to participate in the beauty pageant for you?" Leah asked. Gu Mingming stretched out a finger and shook it, saying, "No, she will only participate in the Eating King segment. As for recruitment, I have other plans." "Recruit?" Elvis and Leah were no longer surprised by Gu Mingming spitting out new words from time to time. They just looked at Gu Mingming in confusion, waiting for her explanation. Gu Mingming smiled like Zhou Bopi, with a cunning look on her face, shrugging her shoulders and shining eyes. She looked like an evil capitalist thinking of how to exploit the poor commoners. To be more specific, it was a little like the landlord in QQ Fight the Landlord. Ever since I came to the beast world, I have been doubting my own worth. I have regretted more than 800 times why I chose human resource management as my major in the first place. Why didn't I learn carpentry, metallurgy or medicine? Now I understand. I was born with a talent that has a use. It has a use. My major is prepared for the annual large-scale blind date. Oh no, the large-scale job fair. Gu Mingming put on a look as if the heavens were pitying her and she could finally show off her ambitions, saying with a smile, "A large number of talents, beast talents? They are strong males, looking for a tribe that suits them in this beauty pageant. Isn't this the same as looking for a job in the job market? It's just that the way you guys look for a job is too random. Whether the job is good or not depends on how much the female eats. This is not scientific. It's not scientific at all. Then you mean? Leah pressed on. Gu Mingming chuckled and said, I have my own plans you guys won't understand even if I tell you. In short, Lil Miss will combine the theories I learned with reality to create the most suitable recruitment plan. As for the rest of you, as long as you believe, don't ask. Okay. Elvis, Leah and Ian looked at each other, then mimicked Gu Mingming's gesture of okay and said, Oh. As for that female, as long as she's not an idiot, she should know that she's no match for me after today's battle. As long as she knows her place, Saint Nazir won't be short of food from her. But if she dares to play dirty with me, I see that the snakeskin pattern on her lower body is unique and exquisite, and I have never used a wallet made of Nuwa skin. Elvis and Leah looked at each other and smiled. They were already used to Gu Mingming's ruthless words from time to time, but if they really asked her to skin them, she would probably be more cowardly than anyone else. However, the fact that she had taken a fancy to the female's tail, the two of them had already firmly remembered it. Aside from the topic, someone asked me, will the things in the introduction happen? Chapter 363. Gu Mingming looked at Ian and then at Leah asking, Has Ian been following us all this while? Leah nodded his head as a reply. Since he has already joined the tribe, why didn't he directly walk with us? Leah smiled and said, His route is different from ours, they walk above. As Leah said, he pointed at the top of their heads. Gu Mingming reacted, It was indeed inhumane to force a bird to give up on the sky and walk on two legs. She smiled awkwardly and asked again, Then what do you guys eat on the way? Did you bring enough food? Ian was surprised. He looked at Gu Mingming and then at Leah. Seeing that Leah was indicating for him to explain to Gu Mingming, he hesitated for a moment but still opened his mouth. As long as it's not winter, we have plenty of food everywhere. Gu Mingming tilted her head and looked at Ian asking, What do you guys eat? Is it like an owl? Ian tilted his head to the side, as if he was a little embarrassed, as if he was not too willing to answer Gu Mingming's question. Leah used his hand to cover half of his lips, moving closer to Gu Mingming's ear in a flirtatious manner, using a volume that everyone could hear to whisper, I don't know what an owl eats, but I know what he eats. What does he eat? Gu Mingming's eyes shone with a thick spirit of gossip. Leah sneered and did not answer Gu Mingming's question. Instead, he looked at Ian and said, If there's really something wrong with that fellow, remember to leave the skin on her tail when you guys eat her. Gu Mingming said she likes it. Ian pursed his lips and looked at Leah. He did not say a word and just transformed into an eagle owl, flapped his wings twice and flew up close to the ground, disappearing into the night in less than 2 breaths. Gu Mingming's smile froze on her face. She turned her head and asked Leah, They eat humans? Lee's gaze was calm as he fiddled with a small tuft of fur on the tip of his tail. I have already reported to the beast deity that these 32 people from the Eagle Owl tribe will protect you in the name of Yongyi. If Elvis and I are your fangs and claws, Barit and Colin are your armor and shield, then these 32 people from the Eagle Owl tribe are your wings, hiding in the darkness to protect you, to bring you wherever you want to go, and to remove obstacles for you. If they threaten you, even if it's me and Elvis, they will use all means to bring us up to the sky and tear us into pieces. They will never forgive us. 2 words popped up in Gu Mingming's mind out of nowhere. Embroidered uniform guards? Where the rod is stuck. Leah looked at Elvis and saw that he was also confused, so he asked, What is that? Gu Mingming explained. It's an organization that is not loyal to the country but loyal to the emperor himself. They are not under the jurisdiction of the imperial court and directly take orders from the emperor. There's no right or wrong, they don't question right or wrong, and only obey the emperor's orders. Leah nodded as he listened and smiled. Embroidered uniform guards is better than Yongyi. Why don't we change the name of the Eagle Owl tribe to Embroidered Uniform Guards? Chapter 364. Gu Mingming did not know that Ian had secretly returned to his original spot after flying 1 round, and was hiding on the tree above her head. Therefore he had heard every single word that she had said. Ian's eyes flashed in the darkness and he chuckled. He had indeed found a good backer for his clansmen. Shouldn't they have the fate of hiding in the shadows and not being able to see anyone? He had never dared to make such a promise to his own clansmen. That day, when Gu Mengmeng and the rest returned from the forest, they bumped into a heated scene. The new female's snake tail was wrapped around a male's body, and the male's hands were tightly hugging the female's upper body. The two of them were performing an indescribable movement in a magical posture. Gu Mengmeng stared with her eyes wide open for 2 seconds before burping. She then turned around and buried her face into Elvis's shoulder, saying softly, "My eyes hurt, my eyes hurt." Leah looked at Gu Mengmeng in confusion, then took out a chili from his beast skin bag and passed it to Gu Mengmeng, saying, "It's not dried yet, I found it on the road. The effect might not be as good as what you eat during the winter, but it should work. Who do you want to spit? Can I help you?" Gu Mengmeng looked at the chili in Li's hands, and was stunned for a while before she reacted. Leah had told her that they had grinded the chili into powder, and scattered it on their enemies' faces in the winter, when he gave her the chili in the cave. Gu Mengmeng had jokingly said that this move was called spicy eyes. It was just a joke and she did not expect Leah to remember it. However, the current situation was not suitable for him to explain these things. Gu Mengmeng took the green chili from Li's hands and took a bite. After chewing a few times, she patted Elvis's back and said, "The scene is too beautiful, I don't dare to look. Let's sleep somewhere else." Elvis knew that Gu Mengmeng had some special rules when it came to mating, but he thought that she just did not like others to see her mating. Now that he saw it, she did not like to see others mating either. Elvis glanced at the orcs who were mating with the half-orc female snake and laughed in disdain. "There's really nothing to see. How about I throw them further away? I won't disturb your sleep." Gu Mengmeng shook her head and said, "Sai, doing bad things is like killing one's parents. It's too immoral. Forget it, let's just change places." Elvis thought about it and asked, "Isn't disturbing one's sweet dreams like killing one's parents? Why do bad people do good things like killing their parents?" Gu Mengmeng remembered that she had shouted this sentence when Nina was disturbing her sleep outside the cave. At that time, Nina said that she was looking for Leah in her cave. Gu Mengmeng laughed bitterly, thinking to herself how many holes had she dug for herself with her mouth. If he were to explain them one by one, well, there was no need to change the location. The and at the back could be used as background music. He reckoned that after he finished explaining the nonsense that he had said in the past, the accompaniment would probably stop. How the *CK should I start with? Welcome everyone to Gu Mengmeng's Nonsense Lecture Hall. Today's BGM is a unique live mating poem recitation with a hint of coquettish vibe. Gu Mengmeng shuddered and twitched her lips. "Bring me to wash my eyes first. If I stay here any longer, my eyes will become useless. By then corns will grow tiske. I'll have to dig them out." Elvis was taken aback. He did not expect things to be so serious. Gu Mengmeng's eyes would become useless when she saw others mating. It was only until Elvis, who was burning with anxiety, brought Gu Mengmeng to the stream to help her wash her eyes, but instead, Gu Mengmeng tore off his beast-skin dress and threw herself into the stream. She looked at him from head to toe in a lustful manner that he finally understood how to wash his eyes. Chapter 365. The next morning, when Gu Mengmeng returned to the campsite in Elvis's arms, there were already 4 to 5 males sitting around the half-orc female. Seeing this scene, Gu Mengmeng could not help but exclaim, "So damn efficient. Great messenger, hello." The half-orc female came forward and bowed to Gu Mengmeng. She looked so docile and respectful, totally not looking like she was playing tricks with Gu Mengmeng yesterday. Gu Mengmeng returned the same gentle smile and said, "Since we're on the same side, you don't have to be so polite. You can just call me Gu Mengmeng like everyone else." "How can I do that? You're the honorable great messenger," the half-orc female said in a panic. Gu Mengmeng squinted her eyes and smiled. She thought to herself, to keep saying the words messenger of the beast deity, she was obviously afraid that she would not attract enough attention, right? Back then, That idiot Nina only spread her suspected identity as the messenger of the beast deity, and she almost died under Dumbo's claws. TSK, 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 such a gentle knife. She was trying to push her to the heart of the struggle. But it was a pity that Gu Mengmeng did not intend to hide her identity as the messenger of the beast deity, or else she would not have participated in this eating contest under the guise of a beauty pageant. You wanna play? Let's play then. Gu Mengmeng patted Elvis's shoulder and gestured for him to put her down. Then, she walked slowly to the front of the female and sized her up, asking, "What's your name?" "Ellie." The half-orc female answered respectfully. Gu Mengmeng nodded and asked again, "Ellie, yesterday, how many males in our tribe did you mate with?" Ellie turned back shyly and looked at the males surrounding her. She answered, "4." Gu Mengmeng nodded approvingly, while continuing to size her up. Ellie lowered her head shyly and said, "Although I'm just a half-orc female, I will still fulfill my obligation to mate for the tribe. As long as they don't despise me for being a half-orc, I will give them a chance to prove their loyalty to me." Gu Mengmeng gestured for him to stop and frowned in deep thought. She asked, "You mated with 4 males, then what about your mating mark?" Allie's brows drooped, looking like a delicate and pitiful little white flower. She bit her lower lip and did not speak, as if she was about to cry. Reporting to Lord Envoy. Ellie's first partner, the one she caught yesterday to plead with Elvis, stood in front of Gu Mengmeng and gently hugged Ellie's shoulders to comfort her. Then he explained for Ellie with a face full of heartache, "Our mating mark is on Ellie's tail. Because it was a half-beast, it was covered by the snake scales and could not be seen. Because of this, Ellie has been upset for the whole night yesterday. So, great messenger, please don't ask anymore." "Oh." Gu Mengmeng nodded with a look of sudden realization. She thought to herself, "Little guy, you have some tricks up your sleeves. You managed to win people's hearts so quickly." However, this didn't seem to require any special methods. Looking at Quentin, it was obvious how blind the males in the beast world were towards love. Chapter 366. Ellie was taken aback. She thought that Gu Mengmeng would expose her so that she could cry and pretend to be pitiful to gain the favoritism of most people. But why didn't Gu Mengmeng follow the script? Ellie's first partner grinned and comforted Ellie. "See, I told you that the great messenger is easy to get along with. We have a half-beast female bear in our tribe who was always bullied, but the great messenger never looked down on her, and even became best friends with her, and always took care of her." Ellie quickly tidied up the shock on her face, and changed into a harmless and weak look. She nodded and smiled at Gu Mengmeng, saying, "Great messenger, you are really a good person." Ding dong, Gu Mengmeng received a good person card. Gu Mengmeng laughed coldly. Damn it, she really didn't expect that the first good person card in her life was given by a coquettish and cheap green tea bitch. Gu Mengmeng remained calm and patted Ellie's shoulder, saying, "Don't worry, Saint Nazir is a tolerant tribe. You just have to stay in the tribe and live a good life." "Yeah, I will." Ellie smiled brightly, but it did not match her snake tail at all. Gu Mengmeng did not say anything more, and just turned around to return to Elvis's arms. Nothing much happened during the day's journey, but when night fell, Ellie's mating operation started again. Gu Mengmeng found an excuse to leave with Elvis and Leah, while Ian naturally followed them secretly. After walking to a sufficient distance, Gu Mengmeng then spoke. "Leah, tell the tribesmen that I don't wish to see more people mating with Ellie." Leah nodded and did not ask why. Elvis looked at Ian again and asked, "Ian, snakes, are they one of your food sources?" Ian nodded and did not say a word. Gu Mengmeng asked again, "Then do you have a certain level of understanding towards snakes?" Ian still only nodded. Gu Mengmeng continued, "When I held her hand today, did you see her tail?" Ian nodded again, and after a moment of silence, he finally opened his mouth and said, "When you approached her, her tail started to tremble. That is the sign of an attack. She wants to kill you." The last 4 words undoubtedly touched Elvis and Lee's reverse scale. The surrounding atmosphere instantly froze. The two of them exchanged glances and made a decision. Gu Mengmeng gently raised her hand and said, Calm down, calm down. Analyze it, all right?" Li's fingertips were slightly cold as he hooked Gu Mingming's chin lightly. He frowned and said, "No matter how useful she is, we cannot use your safety as the price. So we can't keep this Ellie." "Didn't you say she was sent by Sauter?" Gu Mingming said. "Think about it, Sauter calls itself the Messenger's tribe, but a messenger's tribe without messengers is destined to be annihilated. So Sauter's motive should be to obtain me and not to kill me. A dead messenger would be useless to Sauter, right? Since Ellie is from Sauter, not only will she not kill me, she will also protect me in danger." Chapter 367. But Gu Mingming shook her head and said, "Maybe her tail shaking today was just her instinct. After all, females are precious and she has already mated with the males in our tribe. If we want to kill her, we will have to sacrifice our tribesmen. It's not worth it, it's really not worth it." Leah was silent and speechless. But Elvis spoke up. From the moment they chose to mate with Ellie, they placed their fates in the hands of that female. This is their own decision, and no one else has anything to do with it. Gu Mingming cupped Elvis's face and kissed it, saying, "I know you are worried about me, but Ellie is not Nina. Before she does anything substantial, I don't want to kill the innocent. Moreover, I want to use her to catch the big fish." Elvis thought about it and nodded silently. He then turned around and broke off a branch that was as thick as an arm from a tree beside him and said, "I will tie her here for you to fish tomorrow, is that all right?" Gu Mingming facebombed and said, "Hubby, I don't want to catch the fish in the water but the people behind her, so I don't think I have to use this branch anymore." Elvis felt a little regretful. He was still hoping that after she finished fishing, Ellie would have no more value to him, and he could get rid of her as soon as possible. Leah looked at Gu Mingming and asked, "You want to use Ellie to lure the people from Sauter out?" Gu Mingming nodded and said, "Correct." "How to lure them out?" Leah frowned and had a bad premonition. Gu Mingming didn't answer Li's question and just asked with a smile, "How far are we from Sauter now?" Li's gaze was cast in a direction and he was silent for a moment before saying, "About half a day's journey. We should be able to reach by tomorrow afternoon." Gu Mingming looked at Li's nostalgic gaze and couldn't bear to see him like this. She asked, "This is your first time back to Sauter?" Leah shook his head and then nodded, saying, "When Saint Nazir was first established, Elvis and I came here once. But we didn't enter the city and just left after saving Maya at the periphery. After that, Elvis would bring people to escort Nina to the beauty pageant every year, while I stayed at Saint Nazir to look after the house." Gu Mingming nodded and patted Li's shoulder lightly. "If you feel that it's too much, you don't have to accompany me in." But Leah smiled. His long and narrow eyes became gentle and determined when he met Gu Mingming's gaze. His voice was low and he spoke slowly. He enunciated each word clearly. "I'm not going in with you. I only have the courage to face that place with you around." Gu Mingming smiled. Perhaps it was because the moonlight was too gentle, so her smile was exceptionally tranquil. His voice was like the melody of flowing moonlight. His ears could not hear it, but his eyes could see it clearly. His heart could feel it. "It's my honor," Gu Mingming said. Elvis hesitated for a moment, but still decided to break the beautiful silence. He frowned and said, "Leah, before you left Sauter, were there people from the Snake tribe in Sauter?" Chapter 368. Elvis nodded, then continued, "I also find it strange. I've never seen anyone from the Snake tribe in any tribe. And I have a strange feeling towards her. It's very familiar, just like a stray beast." Gu Mingming looked at Elvis in confusion, asking, "There are female stray beasts? Isn't it said that females are very precious, and every tribe is fighting for them?" Elvis replied, "That's usually the case, but there are exceptions like Nina." Gu Mingming was taken aback, then she frowned and said, "Don't tell me that the reason she doesn't have a mating mark is not because she's a half-beast, but because she's the same as Nina, a female who washed off her mating mark and was abandoned by the beast deity?" Elvis nodded, and after a moment of silence he replied, Other than being abandoned by the beast deity like Nina, without a mating mark, there's another situation. Elvis's gaze dimmed, as if his heart was very heavy. Gu Mingming looked at Elvis in confusion, then turned to look at Leah. Leah shook his head at her, indicating that he did not know what was wrong with Elvis. Hubby. Gu Mingming wrapped her arms around Elvis's neck, using her forehead to gently touch Elvis's, saying gently, "Did you think of something bad? If you don't want to say, you don't have to force yourself." Elvis used his hands to hold Gu Mingming's singlet and pushed her towards him, taking a deep breath, filling his nostrils with her fragrance. After soothing the discomfort in his heart, he then continued, "The other situation is when a female is snatched away by a stray beast, and after mating, she gives birth to a cub. In this situation, the cub is born as a stray beast, so there's no way to leave a mating mark." Gu Mingming saw an obvious emotion in Elvis's eyes, one that was more profound than sadness, and more profound than pain. It was an indescribable complexity, causing her heart to stop for a moment. Without saying anything, she just hugged Elvis's neck tightly, using her entire body to fill his embrace. Just like me, Elvis hugged Gu Mingming back tightly, mustering his courage to say these 5 words. His identity was not a secret in the tribe, and he had never been afraid of revealing his background. Until he met her, he was afraid that she would despise him because of his life, alienate him, avoid him. And so he was always humble in front of her, always cautious, always worried about personal gains and losses. For the first time, he felt that admitting that he was a natural stray beast required so much courage. At that moment, he did not even dare to look into Gu Mingming's eyes. He was afraid of seeing her disgust, afraid that she would say that she wanted to abandon him. "Fool, you have me and our 4 sons. You have a family, how can you be a stray beast?" Elvis's heart skipped a beat, and he could even hear the sound of his blood boiling. "I didn't tell you my identity before mating, you don't blame me?" Elvis furrowed his brows tightly. Every word he asked sounded as if he was treading on thin ice. Gu Mingming exhaled and laughed. She placed her hands on Elvis's shoulders and looked into his eyes, asking, "Before you mated with me, did you have any special female friends?" Hearing her strange sentence, Elvis frowned and shook his head. "Other than Leah, I don't have any friends." Gu Mingming looked at Elvis ambiguously with an "I understand" expression, then looked at Leah with an evil smile. Chapter 369. Since you didn't cheat or come out of the closet before marriage, why should I mind? Gu Mingming smiled casually, her clear eyes emitting a light that was gentler than the moonlight. She shone down a layer of radiance, lighting up Elvis's heart that had been sealed in ice for a long time. Those unbearable, cold and dark memories seemed so insignificant in front of her smile. "But I was once a vagrant." "Fool." Gu Mingming held Elvis's face with both hands and looked into his eyes seriously, saying, "Before we met each other, we were all vagrants. Luckily you found me and I found you. Then we became each other's hometown, no longer having to wander from place to place, no longer having no one to depend on. Every piece of land we walked hand in hand was filled with poetry and distance." "Xiaoming." Elvis leaned forward and kissed Gu Mingming's lips deeply. Heaven knew that from the moment he fell in love with her, he had always been worried that his identity would become the reason for her to abandon him. And this reason now seemed so pale, so laughable, so just so. If all the hardships and torments in the past were to meet her, then it was too worth it. Even if the past were to repeat itself 100 times in exchange for female happiness, Elvis felt that it was worth it. So the beast deity did not abandon him. He was only testing him, training him, and now he gave the best to him. After the kiss, Gu Mingming slapped Elvis's head, raised her chin and said, "Call me queen." Elvis was instantly dispelled by Gu Mingming's slap. He smiled helplessly and shook his head, but his heart was filled with warmth. He knew that Gu Mingming was using this method to pull him out of his sadness. But what she didn't know was that his sorrow had already vanished into thin air in her smile. The moment Gu Mingming said that she did not care about the past, it no longer had any meaning. Holding Gu Mingming's little hand, Elvis planted a kiss on the back of her hand and said sincerely, "Yes, my queen." Gu Mingming nodded approvingly, then snuggled back into Elvis's arms. That was her exclusive throne. Then she looked up at Elvis and asked, "So you suspect that Ellie is the child of a stray beast?" Elvis nodded and said, "I can't rule out this possibility." Leah continued, "After returning home yesterday, I specially observed Ellie carefully. She really matches the characteristics you mentioned. And these were things that females in the beast world would never do. The circumstances of their lives made it impossible for them to conceal their true intentions. Because no matter what they want, the males will agree. As for Ailey, she's too understanding and impeccable." Gu Mingming nodded and said, "Unfortunately, perfection itself is the biggest flaw." This was the first time Leah had heard of this theory. He was stunned for a moment and pondered over it. He did not reply and just smiled. The next morning, when Gu Mingming and the gang returned to the campsite, Ellie's males had increased from 4 to 9. Gu Mingming praised Ellie's positive attitude toward solving the problem of mating in the tribe, and encouraged her to continue working hard in the upcoming beauty pageant to win more followers for the tribe. Perhaps only Ellie's 9 partners who did not know the truth believed it to be true. Out of topic. Today's update is over. Continue tomorrow at 9. Chapter 370. The hidden daggers between Gu Mingming and Ellie had already started to show. Because other than the 9 males that Ellie had already mated with, she could no longer seduce any other tribesman from St. Nazaire. Or rather, under Lee's guidance, Ellie's 9 partners became nervous. No matter what Ellie needed, the 9 of them would cooperate with each other to complete it quickly, not giving her any chance to extend an olive branch to anyone else. And although Ellie was furious, she still maintained her innocent demeanor, and did not dare to show her dissatisfaction. According to Lee's prediction, they arrived at Sauter in the afternoon. Standing at the entrance of the messenger's tribe, Gu Mingming looked up at the horizontal board on the 2 wooden pillars. The 4 words "Messenger's Tribe" were written in a sage-like manner. It was just that it had been a long time and had been weathered badly. Gu Mingming felt that if she were to sneeze here, the horizontal board could be shattered into dust and blown away by the wind, never to be seen again. Elvis did not know how to read and just followed Gu Mingming's gaze upwards. It was just a piece of broken wood with a few scratches from claws. He did not know what was so nice about it. But Gu Mingming had always been fond of unusual things, and he was already used to it. So he asked softly, "Do you like it?" Gu Mingming snapped out of her trance and looked at Elvis's face. She calmed herself down and smiled. "No, it's just that I haven't seen simplified Chinese characters for a long time. It's a little familiar." Leah frowned and looked at Gu Mingming asking, "You recognize the markings on it?" Gu Mingming did not answer but asked back, "You don't?" Leah shook his head and said, "This wooden board was left behind by the previous messenger. Other than her, no one knows what it means." Gu Mingming asked in surprise, "You guys don't know how to read? Then what do you guys think of those ancient books that you mentioned in the past?" Leah said, "Ancient books are for worship and not for reading." "Gu Mingming," Leah said, "the contents of the ancient books are all passed down from father to son, son to grandson, generation after generation. So when it reached my generation, there aren't many left. Or else." Lee's gaze drifted towards the interior of Sauter. His gaze was deep and cold, as though it was calm, but his heart was already in turmoil. His thin lips parted slightly, still smiling, but every word seemed to have the weight of 1,000 gold. He said sonorously, "How could I be so easily tricked by them back then?" Gu Mingming patted Lee's shoulder and said, "Revenge is a dish best served cold. Now that we're here, we might as well help you take revenge." Gu Mingming pointed at the severely weathered signboard and smiled slyly. "I know these words. I will read them to you from the ancient books later." Leah was taken aback, but his gaze immediately turned gentle. He smiled and said, "All right." Gu Mingming took the initiative to hold his hand. "Hubby, let's go." Elvis carried Gu Mingming up, and used the beast's skin to cover her little head, trying his best not to expose her face. But even so, The group still caused quite a commotion when they entered Sodor. If not for Elvis and Leah exuding a strong aura along the way, the three of them would have been surrounded to the point where they could not move an inch. And beside Ellie, who was just a few steps away, other than the 9 males who had already mated, there was not even a single foreign fly. A snake's eyes were poisonous after all. Perhaps it was unintentional, but it was hard to change one's nature. Aside from the topic, recommending 111p for support Overlord Pet. Cute Queen is too mischievous, a beautiful sheep fell from the sky, and someone on the ground turned into a wolf. Mo Shuyang. Sheep. The war went on, the country was saved, but was captured by the enemy leader in the end. Captured to be a manservant? Serving tea, cleaning the backyard, coaxing a bunch of drama queen women was one thing, but he had to be in charge of warming the bed? Damn it, there were so many women in the backyard, but he had to pester his mother. Was there something wrong with his brain? Situ Lang, wolf woman. This king is very interested in the cat you're raising called Duo La Whatever Dream. He wanted to be a cat lover, but in the end he became a wolf that ate sheep. Sheep, I realized that you're more adorable and easier to bully than that cat. A certain sheep was roaring in his heart. Sheep, I'm not a wolf, do you believe me? Chapter 371. If there was anything in the messenger's tribe that made Gu Mingming happy, it would probably be the houses. This place was different from Saint Nazaire. No one lived in a cave, or rather, the locals of Sodor and the females who came to participate in the beauty pageant did not need to stay in a cave. There were old houses that resembled those in an old village, built with pieces of huge green stone bricks. Honestly speaking, it really could not be considered luxurious. If it was in the modern world, it would either be a cultural heritage that was being protected, or an endangered building with a big red demolition sign. But in this place, it already showed the difference and superiority of the messenger's tribe. Are you representing Saint Nazaire to participate in the beauty pageant? A guard at the entrance of the stone house asked Elvis, who was standing in front of him. Yes. Elvis replied. The guard glanced at Leah, and did not say a word. He just turned his body to the side to let them in, indicating that they could enter. After entering the house, Elvis placed Gu Mingming on the stone table at the side, before he and Leah started to clean the house. The house was very simple, just a simple little house. In the modern world, the layout of a child's house was much more lively than this house. It was not that Gu Mingming was picky, but this little house was not even half the size of her dormitory. Now that the three of them were inside, it was already a little cramped. If either Elvis or Leah transformed into their original forms, they would probably directly break the frame of this dilapidated house. There was a stone bed in the room. The surface was full of bumps and hollows, but the edges were abnormally smooth. It was not an exaggeration to say that this damn bed had been slept into paste. Elvis and Leah took out a piece of tiger skin and laid it on the bed, before arranging Gu Mingming's little pillow. The giant rabbit skin quilt was neatly folded at the side. After settling everything, Elvis carried Gu Mingming to the bed and said, "It's been a tough journey for you. Take a rest first. I will bring my tribesmen to the cave at the back of the mountain to rest, and help you bring food back." Gu Mingming nodded and said, "Then be careful and come back quickly." Elvis kissed Gu Mingming's forehead lightly, then exchanged a look with Leah. Without saying anything else, he turned around and left. Gu Mingming dangled her feet on the bed in boredom, as she watched Leah place the fruits he picked on the way on the table in an orderly manner. Then he took out the clothes that Gu Mingming needed to change into for the next few days, and checked them one by one. Those that had problems were immediately remedied, and those that had no problems were folded and placed at the side. He was in a relaxed and natural state, as if he did not feel any discomfort after returning to Sodor. On the contrary, Gu Mingming was not used to being alone with Leah like this. She cleared her throat and asked, "That, you shouldn't have been recognized, right? I think they're all quite normal. It shouldn't be possible for someone to suddenly rush in with soldiers to capture you, right?" Leah smiled and tilted his head to look at Gu Mingming. The first beauty of a tribe lives in every stone house here. If you create trouble here, you will be offending all the tribes at the same time. Even Sauter would not dare to do such a reckless thing, so what you are worried about will not happen. Don't worry. Oh, Gu Mingming responded, but felt that something was wrong. She thought for a while and looked up. So they recognized you? Chapter 372. Gu Mingming laughed coldly and said, "Do you believe that it's a coincidence that this person is guarding the door?" Leah shook his head and said, "There are no coincidences in Sauter." Gu Mingming nodded and said, "So our every move has long been monitored by someone. That person is just here to make the final confirmation." Leah, should be. Gu Mingming jumped down from the bed and walked to Li's side. She leaned against the table and crossed her arms in front of her chest, asking, "What do you plan to do next? You can't just sit and wait for death, right?" But Leah gave a faint smile and said, "They probably don't have time to care about me now." Gu Mingming raised her eyebrows and said in a slightly tsundere tone, "That's true. The messenger of the beast deity who has been waiting for 1,000 years has descended. Naturally they don't have time to care about you, the exiled Ninth Highness. Why, do you want me to use my identity as the messenger of the beast deity to help you vent your anger?" Leah supported his cheek with one hand and looked at Gu Mingming from the side. After a long time he slowly opened his mouth and said, "You are worried about me, right?" Gu Mingming smiled awkwardly. She had finally calmed down from the strange atmosphere of being alone with her ex-boyfriend in a room, but Li's words pulled her back again. Shrugging her shoulders, Gu Mingming retreated back to the bed step by step and sat properly. She smiled and said, "Never mind if you don't need it, just treat it as me being nosy. You are so smart, you must have thought of a complete solution and don't need me to worry, right? Ha. Ha ha. I really love to worry for no reason." Leah turned around and his gaze was still fixed on Gu Mingming. He sighed helplessly and said, "What should I do? I was just worried about you back then, so I followed you here in a moment of impulse. As for countermeasures, I totally didn't think about it. After all, according to my plan, Nina should have been the one to participate in this beauty pageant." Gu Mingming was a little flustered and started to regret asking Leah to execute Nina on a whim. At that time, she felt that she had thought it through thoroughly, but now, she was still not confident. After all, everything was only possible in theory. Damn it, Gu Mingming had never put it into practice. But Leah did not give her a chance to think carefully as he walked towards the bed step by step. Gu Mingming watched as Leah approached and inched further into the bed, while Leah pressed his hands against the side of the bed before leaning his body forward. Gu Mingming moved back a little, and Leah moved forward a little, until Gu Mingming had shrunk to the corner of the wall and had no more room to retreat. Leah pressed his hands on both sides of Gu Mingming's ears and said innocently, "I am the witch doctor of Saint Nazir, and also your beast pet, so, you will protect me, right?" What the hell? Wall slam. Where did he learn that? Gu Mingming pushed Li's shoulders and laughed awkwardly. "That I definitely have to protect you. But can you not bring up the pet thing again?" Leah lowered his head and looked at Gu Mingming's hand that was pushing against his chest. He deliberately used an extremely ambiguous tone and smile and said shyly, "You have touched me and slept with me. Everyone in the tribe saw you pouncing on me. Now, it's fine if you don't give me a status, but you won't even let me be a beast pet? Gu Mingming, are you really going to abandon me after using me?" Gu Mingming instinctively retracted her hand. God have mercy, she was just pushing, not touching. Chapter 373. Gu Mingming did not object. After all, facing a sleeping Leah was much easier than facing a awake Leah. She did not know how long had passed, but she knew that the sun was already setting in the west. The afterglow of the setting sun dyed the outside of the stone room that did not even have a curtain. The glow softened the curves of the stone room, making everything look much gentler. Gu Mingming's eyes were already used to night vision, but she still preferred the feeling of being under the sun. Just as she was in a daze, she saw someone walking in. She looked up and indeed met with a pair of blue eyes. "You're back." Gu Mingming smiled. Elvis looked at Leah sleeping on Gu Mingming's knees, and was momentarily stunned. But it disappeared in a flash. He did not say anything and just nodded. Then he opened the beast skin bag he was carrying on his back. There were pieces of raw meat that had already been processed inside. The other bag contained some brightly colored and plump fruits. One look and one could tell that they were the juicy, fragrant and tasty type. Gu Mingming carefully moved Li's head away and used a pillow to replace her legs. Then, she quietly walked down from the bed and leaned on the table to wipe the sweat off Elvis's forehead. She said, "Did you run back? Your forehead is full of sweat." Elvis smiled as he brought a fruit to Gu Mingming's mouth. With an expectant gaze, he gestured for her to taste it. He replied, "I was afraid that you would be anxious from waiting, so I wanted to come back quickly." Gu Mingming took a bite. It was indeed as sweet and juicy as expected. She smiled happily and pushed the fruit to Elvis's mouth. She said, "Oh, it's super delicious. You should try it too." Elvis did not bite the fruit. Instead, he turned his face and kissed Gu Mingming's lips. His nimble tongue invaded her mouth until all the air in her lungs was sucked dry. Then he reluctantly let go of her. Then he smiled and wiped the juice stains off the side of his mouth. He said gently, "Yes, it's very delicious." Gu Mingming bashfully punched Elvis's chest. She said coquettishly, "You're so annoying." Elvis used a tree branch to skewer the meat one by one. Then he placed it at the side. He looked at Leah and said, "I'll go wake Leah up to cook for you. If not, you'll be hungry by the time the meat is done." Gu Mingming shook her head and said, "It's rare for him to sleep so peacefully, don't disturb him. You start the fire and I will roast the meat. I haven't cooked for you in a long time. Although my culinary skills are obviously not as good as Li's, just treat it as a change of taste. Eating once in a while, the most important thing is the thought, right?" Elvis kissed Gu Mingming's cheek and said, "The food you make is the most delicious food in this world. Nothing else can compare. It's just that I don't want you to work too hard." Gu Mingming smiled and pecked Elvis on the lips. "Such a sweet mouth. I'll reward you with 2 more pieces later, all right." Elvis smiled as he carried Gu Mingming out of the stone house. Then he started to light a fire. Gu Mingming hummed a tune at the side as she started to rub salt on the meat, brush some honey and sprinkle some chili on it. This was originally a daily scene, but it attracted many onlookers. More and more people came over, but no one dared to step forward to add flowers. Gu Mingming raised her head and noticed everyone's strange expression. She smacked her head and said, "Io, I forgot that everyone is afraid of fire. It's all right, don't be afraid. This is different from the flame demon. This is domesticated. It's very tame and doesn't bite." Aside from the topic, Gu Mingming, "It's all right. Our fire is very obedient and doesn't usually bite people. Stop looking, let's go." Passerby *N. "Liar, Gu Mingming. I told you to stop looking, can't you hear me?" Passerby *N. "You said it was very tame just now, Gu Mingming. What are you looking at? I'll set a fire and bite you if you keep looking." Passerby *N. "You said you wouldn't bite people just now. It was indeed all a lie." Chapter 374. The crowd still did not appreciate her kindness, and neither did they go near nor leave. They just maintained a distance of about 5 steps to watch. Gu Mingming sighed. Forget it, this was not Saint Nazir after all, and she could not care so much. With that thought, she no longer cared about how others would look at her. She just placed the roasting meat on the fire, and chatted happily with Elvis, as though there was no one else around. Everyone started whispering to each other. Gu Mingming actually could not hear what they were whispering about, but Elvis could hear it clearly. The smile on Elvis's face gradually faded. He took over the roasting meat from Gu Mingming's hands and said, "Xiao Meng, let me do it." Gu Mingming looked at Elvis in shock and asked, "Hubby, did I do something wrong? Why are you doing this to me?" Elvis pursed his lips. He also knew that his cooking skills were really bad. The first time he roasted meat for Gu Mingming, she had diarrhea. The second time during winter, she even vomited. "Why don't I wake Leah up? At most, I will keep watch at night and let him sleep again." Gu Mingming looked at Elvis and then at the crowd. She more or less understood why Elvis was like this. In the past, he had never insisted on such things. Gu Mingming would occasionally cook, and it was not hard for her. She would usually do it for fun, so Elvis basically did not stop her. Today's cover song must have been because of the crowd. Gu Mingming leaned into Elvis's arms and asked with a smile, "What did they say?" Elvis pursed his lips and shook his head without answering. Gu Mingming twisted her body in Elvis's arms and said coquettishly, "Good hubby, tell me, what did they say?" Elvis could not resist Gu Mingming's coaxing and pestering and could only answer, "They said that you must be too skinny and weak, so males despise you. That's why you only have 2 males protecting you. One of them is sleeping while the other is waiting to eat. They don't cherish you at all. It shows how miserable your life is." Elvis's brows furrowed together. He originally wanted his Xiaoming to be envied by others, but now, Gu Mingming burst out laughing and said, "These words must be said by females, right?" Elvis nodded, not understanding. Gu Mingming smiled and said, "It's all right, we don't have to care about these gossips. This is the typical twisted mentality of saying that the grapes are sour because they can't eat it. In my opinion, they are most likely envious that I have such a good husband like you, and that we have such a good relationship. That's why they said such things, to deceive themselves and others, to find a sense of superiority. As far as I know, females can't do whatever they want, because there are many things that they simply don't know how to do. For example, something as simple as barbecuing meat." During the process of barbecuing, you can communicate with your partner and talk about the interesting things that happen throughout the day. After the meat is cooked, you can even share it. Although this amount is not enough for a male, it is a form of affection. Gu Mingming purposely raised her voice so that anyone who was not deaf could hear her. Gu Mingming kept the meat on the roasting rack and secretly tore off a piece of roasted meat from the side. She blew on it before passing it to Elvis and said with a smile, "Hubby, ah." Elvis blushed and took over the small piece of meat from her hands. Aside from the topic, author mushroom. Gu Mingming, you are attracting hatred. Gu Mingming, why you don't allow people to flaunt their love? Author mushroom, those who flaunt their love will die faster. Gu Mingming, this single dog has such a strong sour smell. Author mushroom, flips table. Gu Mingming, I will write you to death. Gu Mingming flicked her fingers nonchalantly and said, "Do you think Elvis will agree?" Author mushroom, I will write Elvis to death too. Gu Mingming smiled sinisterly. The ending of this novel is that the author envies Gu Mingming's blissful married life, so she wrote the male and female protagonists to death? Do you think the readers will agree? Author mushroom, Gu Mingming, I hate you. Chapter 375. Gu Mingming smacked a kiss on Elvis's face and said, "Hubby is so obedient." After she said that, she looked around with a cold smile and said, "If you have the guts, ask your own males if they are envious of my males." After Gu Mingming said that, a few females indeed turned around and exchanged a few words with their own males. Then, looking at the atmosphere, they knew the answer. Gu Mingming smiled and snuggled back into Elvis's arms. Her hands were still turning the roasted meat rack, but her mouth was not idle. She continued saying loudly, "I only need to do such a simple thing, and I can make my partner the object of envy for all males. And I myself have this male that everyone else is extremely envious of. Why wouldn't I?" Elvis's heart was filled with sweetness. He knew that Gu Mingming basically did not care what others thought of her, but she was willing to say such a long speech to a bunch of strangers because she cared about his feelings. Elvis kissed Gu Mingming's hair and said gently, "Xiaoming, thank you." Gu Mingming looked up and kissed Elvis's lips back. She said, "Compared to what you did for me, this is nothing. No matter what others think, see or say, the person who is going to spend the rest of your life with you is me. So, what I think, what I see, and what I say is the most important, isn't it?" "Yes, my queen." Elvis smiled. The females were obviously angry. They turned around and left. Some of the more hot-tempered ones directly ran away in tears. The males naturally followed nervously, and just like that, they all dispersed. Gu Mingming and Elvis finally had some peace. They looked at each other for a long time and finally burst out laughing. And on the roof of the stone house, Ian was standing in the shadows. Leah, who was lying on his side on the bed with his eyes wide open, had an indescribable complex look in their eyes. Was it envy? Or was it jealousy? Or both? The next morning, when Gu Mengmeng woke up, Elvis was sitting by the bed with his brows furrowed and looking at the door sternly. Gu Mengmeng followed his gaze but could only see Li's back figure blocking the door tightly. His furry big tail blocked the door so that not even a mosquito could fly in. "What's wrong?" Gu Mengmeng asked softly. Elvis seemed to have just realized that Gu Mengmeng had woken up. He hurriedly hid his dark face and took the beast's skin coat from the bedside to help Gu Mengmeng wear it. Then he said, "Sauter's leader is here. Leah is blocking them outside." "Sauter's leader? What are you here for?" Gu Mengmeng asked as she put on her clothes. "I think it's because of the roast last night," Elvis replied. Gu Mengmeng said, "What?" "Because I made the onlookers cry when I was roasting meat, so they came to find trouble with me? Do I have to go from house to house to apologize? I'm telling you, I'm not going. I didn't ask them to come and watch. They came on their own. If they want to watch, then let them watch. I didn't even confiscate the ticket and just let them watch, but they still think they're blind. I'm already very restrained by not beating them up. There's no way I can apologize. I'm not going." Chapter 376. Gu Mengmeng looked at Elvis, twitched her lips and slapped her forehead. "I forgot that both of you have amazing hearing. Now I am too embarrassed to scold him for eavesdropping on us. Sigh. Ninth brother, since the little female is awake, can I go in?" That elegant voice sounded again. Leah did not give in at all. He just said coldly, "Leader Cole, please forgive me. My little female is more delicate and has a bad temper. If someone she doesn't want to see enters." Leah stopped halfway through his sentence, while Elvis, who was in the house, suddenly released a large amount of pressure in unison. Gu Mengmeng was still sitting on the bed when she heard the sound of something falling on the ground outside the house. Gu Mengmeng finally understood. Elvis and Leah had developed a tacit understanding over so many years. Other than fighting, picking up girls, managing the tribe, they even had a godly coordination when it came to acting cool. Elvis's pressure did not seem to scare off the person who was called Leader Cole by Leah at the door, only to hear him speaking in a calm tone. "Females are naturally precious. It's normal for them to have a temper. Although I am the leader of Sauter, I have no intention of offending you. Didn't you guard the door for so long just because of the word, request to see?" Gu Mengmeng muttered in her heart. Didn't Leah say that the snow foxes of Sauter were extremely arrogant? Didn't they look down on everyone else other than herself? Why? Did he give in to food after seeing that she knew how to roast meat? Was he the same as Sandy? Anyone who had food was a good person? Elvis whispered into Gu Mengmeng's ear. "I'm afraid they are here for the fire." Gu Mengmeng was stunned. Then she realized that the main point was not the roast meat, but the fire used to roast it. It was said that it was the heavy weapon used by the previous messenger of the beast deity to rule the beast world. It was originally guarded by the snow foxes of Sauter for generations, but for some unknown reason, it was extinguished, and then there was no more holy fire. That's right, how could it be so easy to guard a fire? It could be extinguished with just a short nap. Gu Mengmeng nodded, wore her clothes and shot a look at Elvis, telling him not to worry, it would be fine. After all, Gu Mengmeng had wanted to meet the leader of Sauter. From Dumbo to Ali, it was impossible for him to pretend that he was fine, wasn't it? So Gu Mengmeng cleared her throat and called out to Leah saying, "Those who visit our guests, it's not good not to meet them. However, this is a place where females live after all, so it's really inconvenient for me to invite you in. Please wait for a moment, I'll come out right away." Everything is for the little female's convenience. As a male, it is an honor for me to wait. Cole's tone was still warm, humble and polite. Although they had not met, Gu Mengmeng had a rather good impression of this Cole. At least he was very gentlemanly and did not make others feel disgusted or guarded against him. Elvis helped Gu Mengmeng wear her boots and then tidied up her clothes. Only then did he feel assured and let her get down from the ground. He followed behind Gu Mingming and walked out of the stone house. Chapter 377. The little female in front of him was exactly the same as the messenger of the beast deity he had imagined. No, she was more perfect than he had imagined. Cole was a little agitated. He nodded his head deeply at Gu Mingming as a way to return her smile. Then he took a step back respectfully. May I know if I have the honor to know the name of this beautiful female? Gu Mingming nodded. In the modern world, this kind of pickup line would be extremely lowly. But here, coupled with Cole's elegant appearance, Gu Mingming only felt that he was a gentleman. Gu Mingming smiled and nodded. Leader Cole, how do you do? I am Gu Mingming, a female representing Saint Nazir to participate in the beauty pageant. Sorry, Gu Mingming was too embarrassed to mention the title of the first beauty of the tribe. Damn, it was too Chinibu, too pretentious, too disgusting. Gu Mingming. Cole savored the name. He looked up at Gu Mingming's eyes and asked, Can I call you Gu? Gu Mingming did not suspect anything. Just as she was about to agree, Elvis and Leah answered in unison. No, Cole seemed very disappointed. But he could not do anything about it. He nodded. All right then, call me Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming did not know why these two fellows were so sensitive. But she was not used to a man giving her a nickname on their first meeting. So she did not probe further. She just flipped the page and went straight to the main topic. Leader Cole, you came to find me early in the morning just to ask me if I roasted meat here last night? Gu Mingming glanced sideways at the pile of ashes in the corner. Isn't the answer obvious? You have been here for the whole morning. Don't tell me you didn't see it. No, I actually came because of another question. Cole said seriously. I heard the female accompanying you call you the messenger of the beast deity. Gu Mingming smiled. Did Cole really have nothing to do with Ellie so he did not know? Or was he in cahoots with Ellie to trick her? Unable to see through this mail, Gu Mingming did not hide anything. If I am the messenger of the beast deity because I can light a fire, then I should be. This answer made Cole's blood boil. He clenched his fists in agitation. After taking 2 deep breaths, he said, We need to carry out a ceremony to confirm your identity. If you are really the messenger of the beast deity. Gu Mingming did not say anything. She just lifted her chin and looked at Cole, as if waiting for him to continue. But Cole did not say anything. She just smiled and said, I. Gu Mingming did not say anything. With that, Cole placed his right hand on his left chest and bowed to Gu Mingming before turning to leave. But before he could take 2 steps, he suddenly stopped and looked at Leah. Ninth brother. You haven't returned for so many years. You must miss Otter very much, right? Gu Cole of the brother of you to Mo. Shao of I Mo, he Shao of Gu of me. Master. Gu of to my Xiaoming dotes on me very much. She can't not see me for even a moment. Cole frowned and started sizing up Gu Mingming. He asked in confusion. Have already made it? Gu Mingming's expression changed. Leah shook his head. He smiled brightly and innocently like a child. I didn't mate. I am Xiaoming's beast pet. Aside from the topic, high energy warning ahead. Chapter 378. Gu Mingming jumped up and hooked her arms around Li's neck. She covered his mouth and laughed awkwardly. Leader Cole, since you still have things to do, we shall not waste your time. Please go ahead, please go ahead. With that, without waiting for Cole's reply, she carried Li's head back to the stone house. After sneaking a few glances to make sure that Cole had left, Gu Mingming then released Li's neck and glared angrily. Are you done? Must you announce to the world that you are my beast pet, so that no female would want you in the future? Are you happy? Let me tell you, if you want to use this method to make me feel guilty, then let me tell you, you are thinking too much. It is your choice to not take your own life seriously. I will not be responsible for your choice, do you hear me? Leah was as obedient as a primary school student. He stared at the angry Gu Mengmeng with deep affection and smiled blissfully. Hey, I am talking to you. Why are you smiling? Gu Mengmeng looked at Li's joyful look and was even more furious. Leah looked at Elvis and asked, so this is how it feels to be reprimanded by Gu Mengmeng. No wonder you always make mistakes in front of her and make her shout. The veins on Gu Mengmeng's forehead instantly bulged, and she placed her hands on her waist. Am I praising you? Leah took a step forward and bent down slightly, sending his ear to Gu Mengmeng. His eyes curved into a bridge, and he said in an expectant tone, do you want to pinch my ear? It looks quite painful, but I still want to experience it. Gu Mengmeng was so angry that she did not know how to get angry. She blinked her eyes at Leah and asked, are you a damn masochist? Do you have masochistic tendencies? Leah thought about it seriously, then nodded his head and said, only towards you. I like it when you are angry at me. Because when you are angry, that pair of beautiful eyes will focus on me. Although it is a little scary when you look like you can shoot fire from your eyes, but the danger is very beautiful and makes one addicted. As Leah said that, he gently caressed Gu Mengmeng's cheeks. That pair of narrow and affectionate eyes clearly reflected Gu Mengmeng's slightly sympathetic expression, as if she was looking at an idiot. However, Li's lips curved upwards and he took a deep breath, enjoying the fragrance that permeated the air that belonged to her. After reminiscing for a while, he then continued, if you will also pull my ears and scold me, if you will also throw potatoes, sweet potatoes and salted fish at me, if you will also set 3 rules with me, ordering me not to use you as a bet, not to say that it doesn't matter whether you like me or not to abandon you. That will be even more blissful. Leah leaned closer to Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng could even clearly feel the temperature of Li's breath and his unique scent. Li's gaze was filled with pleading, with a tinge of resentment and anticipation. He asked softly, hey, satisfy me too, alright? Satisfy what? Gu Mengmeng took a step back and lost her balance, almost falling. Leah quickly grabbed onto Gu Mengmeng's waist and pulled her inwards. Gu Mengmeng's abdomen was pressed tightly against Li's abdomen. This position caused Gu Mengmeng's feet to be unable to land on the ground. After kicking twice, it made her look even more comical. Gu Mengmeng pouted and shouted at Elvis, hubby, he is already teasing me like this. Aren't you going to have any reaction at all? Aside from the topic, today's 9 chapters are over babies. Continue tomorrow. Yeah, I know. It's not satisfying enough. I will try to save more manuscripts and wait for the editor to inform me when I want to add more chapters, alright? Be obedient and hand over all your tickets. It was said that only works with good rankings would have the right to be recommended. With recommendations, there would be more chapters. So, do you guys understand now? Where are the tickets? Chapter 379. Elvis thought about it and walked forward. He hugged Gu Mengmeng into his arms with one hand and twisted Li's ear with the other. Then he said expressionlessly, since Xiao Ming isn't willing, then I'll satisfy you. It's about this strength. Are you happy now? Leah slapped Elvis's hand away and turned around saying, you can't make me feel happy and satisfied. I'm not interested in males. Puffed. Ha. Gu Mengmeng laughed like an idiot and trembled in Elvis's arms. When she finally stopped laughing, Leah came in with breakfast for her. Ian caught some fish at the river before the sky brightened. Leah removed the fish bones and boiled it with sweet potatoes to make a porridge-like paste. He mixed some honey into it before bringing it to Gu Mengmeng. He scooped a little with a small spoon and blew on it to warm it. Then he brought it to Gu Mengmeng's mouth saying, ah. Gu Mengmeng reached out to take the bowl and said, no need, I can do it myself. I'm in good shape, I'm not a vegetable. But Leah dodged and looked at Gu Mengmeng sadly saying, you promised me in the past to treat yourself as a severely handicapped person who can't take care of himself and let me take care of you in everything. Gu Mengmeng clicked her tongue and said, let's not talk about the past, we can still be friends. Leah swayed his tail happily and said, this is what you said, let's not talk about the past. We can all start afresh. Gu Mengmeng said, hey, don't change my original words. I said we can still be friends. Who said anything about starting afresh? Leah said, didn't we start as friends in the past? If we can still be friends, doesn't that mean we can start afresh? Gu Mingming said, everything that happened before this year's spring is called the past. Just let it go with the wind and neither of us will mention it again, okay? Leah mumbled something, but Gu Mingming did not hear it clearly. It was just some grumbling and Gu Mingming did not pursue it further. She just asked in an emphatic tone, okay? Leah nodded and said with some grievance, if we don't mention the past, can we talk about the new things? Gu Mingming nodded and made a please gesture. Leah pointed at Elvis and said, Elvis humiliated me just now, he. He touched my ears. If this gets out, I won't be able to be a fox anymore. Sob, as the head of the family, shouldn't you comfort my wounded heart? Gu Mingming really wanted to maintain a stern image, but she could not hold it in. She doubled over in laughter on the bed, slapping her thighs while saying, I knew there was something going on between you two, ha. Elvis's face darkened as he carried Gu Mingming, who was crying from laughing so hard. He tilted her little chin and forced her to look at him. He clenched his teeth and said, other than you, I have never slept with anyone else. Gu Mingming looked at Elvis's darkened face and tried to hold back her laughter. But the more she tried, the more she wanted to laugh. In the end, she could only tremble until it was vibrating. Elvis sighed. He could not do anything to Gu Mingming and could only turn to look at Leah. Can you stop saying things that will cause Xiao Ming to misunderstand? It was not easy for me to prove that we are innocent, but if you say the same thing, she will. Leah did not buy it. He placed the cold porridge in the spoon into his mouth and tasted it. The taste was not bad. It should be the type that Gu Mingming liked. Then he scooped another spoonful of porridge and blew on it before answering Elvis. Are we innocent? Aside from the topic, that you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.